All right, welcome back to Waste Some Time with Jason Green. I am Jason Green. It's Wednesday. We're here live, and we're going to be talking all about Nothing But a Good Time, the brand new documentary series on Paramount Plus. I got off my kidney stone deathbed to be here with you, so I hope you'll have some sympathy and dig deep this evening. Nothing fun about kidney stones. I haven't had one in quite some time, but it's back and terrible pain. I was not going to do this show today. I hadn't shaved in days, and this pain occurred on the road with Stephen Piercy last weekend. We were in Michigan, Sault Ste. Marie, practically Canada, and the pain began. It was the longest flight home ever, just taking Tylenol and a lot of Dramamine to knock myself out to try to get through the flights. These flights are murder as they are, but with a kidney stone, it's even worse. When I got home, the pain was excruciating. Went to the emergency room, got some medication, some other things to help. And when I woke up this morning, it didn't hurt as bad. The kidney stone starts high in the kidney, and I felt it. The doctor says, I'm surprised you feel it, but you become incredibly nauseous. My kidney stone, when it lowers, it goes into a thing called the ureter, which is the tube that brings it to your bladder. That movement is what hurts so bad, and your urine backs up. I'm sorry to turn this into a medical show. And it feels like a constant stabbing pain. You get very sick, nauseous, vomiting. It's a terrible experience, and it's something I'm looking forward to coming soon. But the actual passing of it is not really where the pain is at. If you're lucky, you're medicated at that time. It's just the releasing from the kidney, getting it through. So anyway, but the last couple of days, I was barely able to move, barely able to talk. And then today I felt up to doing this, and I had watched Nothing But a Good Time series and definitely felt like talking about it because there's a lot of issues and a lot of people have different opinions, maybe even some controversies. My co-host Wednesday 13 is here, and we'll be joined by Stevie Rachelle, who is one of the co-stars of this documentary. And I think he did a very good job speaking for the industry, speaking as somebody in one of the bands at the time that maybe wasn't obviously wasn't multi-platinum, but was it there and took his shot, and I think has a lot of knowledge. So we're going to talk all about that and more right after this. Just wanna waste some time with you. Sometimes it seems too good to be true. Nobody out there can waste time without you. All right, let's get some plugs out of the way first. Right now, RATT 40th anniversary Out of the Cellar re-release is available. It's going to come with a song that no one has ever heard before. So you're going to get the anniversary vinyl or CD of Out of the Cellar with a venticular cover, and there's a track that comes in it. It's a 45 7-inch, and it's called Reach for the Sky. It's an old RATT song. Matt Thorne used to play it. I think Mark Torrin used to play it back in the Mickey RATT days. Well, this is from the Out of the Cellar sessions. It's produced by Beau Hill. It has an incredible Robin and Warren dual solo, and sounds like the classic RATT that maybe you remember, and mastered by Matt Thorne. So anyway, if you want to pre-order that, get on it now. Click in the description, and you can get that. Also, my birthday wish list is there. People were telling me I should share it because when I got this kidney stone, I didn't think I would make it to my birthday. So anyway, all those links are in the description. Let's bring in my co-host for the night, Wednesday 13. How are you, Wednesday?
I'm good. I'm sorry to hear about your kidney stones. I immediately started thinking of songs that had the word stone in it, and I started making a list, and then I forgot the list by now. But one of them was Bang Tango. Breaking Up a Kidney Stone was one of my songs because I brought it in just for this episode.
I didn't think of that. That's a good one. Well, I was thinking Bob Dylan, Like a Rolling Stone.
Yeah.
Papa Was a Rolling Stone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think
there's Kidney Stone Cold Crazy, Queen.
Kidney Stone Cold Crazy would be good.
Yeah.
Wednesday, they got this documentary. It's out on the Paramount Plus. It's called Nothing But a Good Time. It's the uncensored story of 80s hair metal. Have you seen it?
I watched it all. It was so good. I couldn't space it out. I just kept, and once I found out Stevie was in it, I just watched it all the way through. So it was good. Really
we
good.
binge watched 2. We
Mhm.
saved the 3rd one for the next night, but and we also really enjoyed it. Now, this is based off a book. Did you know it was a book first?
No, I did not. I
There's a
don't
link.
read. I don't read a whole lot, but now
Well, that's
I'm
why
familiar with what I saw. I was like, oh, I did see that book. But yeah, I was just the thing I liked about it. There was stuff in it that I didn't. There were stories in it I hadn't heard. The animation was cool, so it was good. When I first started watching, like, oh, this will be the same old thing I've seen before, but it wasn't.
Well, I thought so too, but we'll talk about that with Stevie when he gets here. But I want to make sure that if people want to read the book, go in the description, click on it. The book was written by 2 guys who really should change their names. Richard Beanstalk.
Bad name,
Yeah,
Beanstalk.
Beanstalk. I think it's Beanstalk. Bienstock. Either way, he should change his name. And his co-author is Tom Beaujour. Beaujour. Beaujour.
Yeah.
Bonjour, Beanstalk. Anyway, they should change their names to something more rock and roll.
Yes. He
Anyway.
could be Bon Jovi instead of Bonjour. Come on, get with it.
It'd be much cooler. Although they don't like to talk about Bon Jovi, as
No.
apparent in this documentary, the biggest selling hair band of all time.
Oh, that's right. They didn't mention them. That's
almost omitted, but we're going to find out why, and we're going to talk about it now. Paramount Plus. This is a documentary directed by Jeff Tremaine. Jeff Tremaine, co-creator of Jackass, director of the Jackass movies. He's the one who directed this piece. He's the one who did the interviews. Now, it was available on YouTube first, 1 episode free. I tried to watch the free episode, and
I watched the free episode.
I watched it too late. It was midnight, and it ran out. I watched 8 minutes, and then they turned me off of it. And so I had to go buy the subscription to Paramount Plus. I already did the trial, so I had to buy it. What I did is I used a different email. I signed up through Roku, and for $30, I have a year's subscription to Paramount Plus. Not bad. And this metal show thing, Nothing But a Good Time, was worth $30. I think I enjoyed it, but
yeah, I watched the first episode on YouTube. It was just on, and then when it ended, I went, I need to see the rest of this, and then I went on Paramount. But luckily, the lady already had a subscription with that, so she has all those movie channels. I don't know about it.
That's what I told Michelle earlier. I bet you Wednesday got help, and you did.
Yes, and the same thing when I just watched the Gary Coleman documentary and didn't realize I had that whole thing. So that's a whole other episode we can talk about. You got to watch that and discuss.
Well, we'll discuss that with our guest Todd Bridges. But for now,
Dudley.
Anyway, the comments are going crazy, and I know people want to talk about this, and I know people want to talk to Stevie about it, and we're going to get to these comments. But first, we got to bring in co-star of this Nothing But a Good Time, the one and only Stevie Rachelle. How are you, Stevie?
There he is.
What's up, Jason? What's up, Wednesday? Glad to be here. Can you hear me okay?
You're good now.
Perfect.
And you can see me. I'm in full regalia here for the event.
Mm-hmm.
Your video quality looks a little bit like a beheading video, but
is it that bad?
Well, I mean, I could see a jihadist terrorist sort of action happen in that frame, but I'm not wanting that to happen to you.
You're not a grown man surrounded by toys and wacky lights, though, so that might be the problem.
Well, right. I'm not a pro. You guys are clearly doing this regularly. I do it like once every few weeks, once a month. And it's like, okay, I'm currently sitting, in my room against the wall. I don't always do this. And every time I do it, as Jason knows, like we just had an issue, my volume wasn't working on my laptop. So now I got my phone and I got it attached. I have one of those ring lights, but it's not on the most stable stand. So it's rocking all over the place. And
I think we're good. I wanted to suggest a backdrop for you in case you do more of these. What about this one? If this is like a splattered paint kind of backdrop.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. That could work. Maybe I should order one of those.
That's a young Stevie Rachelle from the genre. Listen, I think we all got excited watching this because, okay, so for me, the hair metal seems to end in the 90s. The documentary shows that grunge comes in. For me, it was 1999 when Poison did their big tour that hair metal started to make a comeback. That first tour, Love Hate with Jizzy Pearl, Steve Riley, was the opener. Then Great White with the Essential lineup, RATT with the Essential lineup, Poison all original, and then all of a sudden things started to come back. Metal Sludge was already in existence, Stevie's website, and there was a resurgence of hair bands, and labels were looking to, your CMCs and your Portraits were looking to sign some of these hair metal bands, and
Correct.
the ones that stayed together started to do well. Well, now we're in a time when I see it, and we're all out on the road. You see younger people are discovering these bands that we grew up with, we knew, we loved, Stevie was part of, and their resurgence is back. My big thing with this documentary is there are going to be people who watch this and say, I want to go see Quiet Riot, even if Rudy Sarzo is the only one in it, because you're going to take what you can get. You want to be part of that scene. I agreed with the people in the documentary who said in the early 90s, people didn't want to have a good time. People were starting to get angry. Things were starting to change. But you know what? I think people want to have fun now. And I think that this Paramount Plus documentary, it really makes it fun. Now, before we all get into it, and we'll all give our opinions and we'll take questions, we should start by saying the first part of the documentary deals with your first tier of what would be considered hair metal bands. We're going to use that term. I know some people don't like it, but for this, it fits. Your first tier is your Motley Crue, your Quiet Riot, RATT. Who am I missing?
Dokken, Wasp, Great
Van
White.
Halen.
Yeah, Van Halen, right. All of those. That's your first wave, and the documentary talks about how some of those bands started. One of the things that we should point out is this is not for fans who know everything. If you're looking to, or if you already know everything about every band, this isn't going to enlighten you. This is not where you start. If you are stump the trunk, you're not going to be blown away. This is an overlook. To fit all those bands in 3 45-minute episodes, it would be impossible. So they're not teaching you how the bands met and how they got signed. They give you an overview on some of that. And so people should know that going in. Go in open-minded. Go in because you want to see some clips. I saw footage in here that I had never seen before of some of these bands. And I think that's really fun. And we saw interviews with some of these people that we hadn't seen. In the first episode, Rudy Sarzo discusses the plane crash. You might talk about it in the second episode, but it's in that first tier with Randy Rhoads. There's footage that I hadn't seen before, and I didn't know that Sharon Osbourne's assistant was in the plane. Maybe I forgot, but to see a face and know that this other woman also perished in that crash, to see the reactions and hear the interviews, to see how emotional Rudy is about it to this day, to sit and reminisce watching the plane burn as his bandmate and friend is dying. So there's a lot of things in there. There's good and there's bad. So I want to get that out of the way. If you're looking for, this is not, what's the guy's name who makes the documentaries on baseball? Can't think of the guy's name. He makes like these 12-hour, Ken Burns. This is not the heavy metal encyclopedia. This is enough to fit into 3 45-minute episodes. Now, before we get into our opinions on the show, I want to know, Stevie, how you were approached to be in it.
Well, going back to what you said just in the beginning here a minute ago, the book, which I just pulled off my shelf here, for all those that don't know, this book came out about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 2021 or something like that. And obviously it's a very similar name. There's a little tweak. It's Nothing But a Good Time. The Uncensored History of the 80s Hard Rock Explosion is what they call it. And this book is, what is it, 300-400 pages? It's a lot. And this book, I was approached by Richard Beanstalk, one of the 2 co-authors, about 5 years ago, maybe more, maybe 6 years ago or 7 years ago, as this book was being put together, and he said, "We're interested to include you." And if I'm not mistaken, and everybody that's read it knows, this is actually compiled of a bunch of older interviews from magazines and stuff that bands were interviewed back in the heyday. And obviously, most of those magazines are now laying in the bottom of somebody's, trunk in a garage, or they've long since went to the landfill. So they basically pulled out some stuff from the archives and created this book. Then it came out 4 or 5 years ago. Then it was Richard who also reached out to me about 2 years ago, maybe in 2022, and said, "We're interested. Are you available to do an interview? This is being turned into a documentary, which is going to be through some kind of, network." They didn't know exactly which one it was at that point, I don't think. And I said, "Sure, I'd love to do it." And so a lot of, phone calls and emails and when are you available and when not. And right away, to address people's comments online, there's been a few people that said, like, "How come they didn't interview this guy? How come he's not in there? How come they didn't do Tammy? Or how come this guy or Ted Poley or whatever?" It also comes down to scheduling. It's very much like this. Here's my analogy. When we get a press release that hits the internet, whether it's on Blabbermouth, Brave Words, Metal Sludge, wherever, Striper's going on tour, Kiss is going on tour. Here's the 40 dates. And the comments are full of, "What? No North Carolina? Huh? No Austin, Texas? Why not Portland?" People are complaining, like, why aren't they coming here? It's not that they don't want to play those places. It just didn't work at that point, with routing, other events that were happening, maybe in North Carolina during the week that they were open in the Southeast. Maybe there was a competitive concert within the same time frame, a big GNR show. And the promoters went, "Well, they're going to soak up 40,000 tickets. We're going to have a hard time trying to sell here. Let's move over to Virginia instead." Same thing applies here. They call me and say, "Stevie, we're going to come into Los Angeles on these dates, April 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Are you available?" Now I go through my calendar. Had I been in Brazil that week, or Germany, or Australia, maybe I don't get interviewed. Maybe I don't make the cut. And at the same time, maybe they called Tammy and he said, "That's 2 weeks that we're doing a run on the East Coast. I'm not going to be in LA that week." So they approached me. I was available. I went down the day that I shot. I think there was 3 artists. It was me in the morning. Dave Sabo and Rachel Boland were the afternoon. And I think there was one other artist at night. So all 3 of us shot 3 segments, morning, noon, and night that day. And again, this also comes into play like anything. It's a budget thing. There's only so many days. There's only so much time. There's only so much money that they can shoot in LA for a week, or Chicago for 2 days, and New York City or New Jersey or Austin. So that's how I got approached, and that's pretty much how it came to be that I sat down. And it was the spring of 2023, so about a year and a half ago.
Now, musicians get approached for these all the time. Obviously, I work with Stephen Pearcy.
Yep.
I would say 3-4 times a week, he's approached to be part of a documentary or something.
Yep.
And you don't always know which ones are going to be big, which ones are going to be even ever seen. I mean, I'm sure you've done interviews before that never got made. So now Jeff Tremaine is a big deal. I pointed out he created Jackass, directed it. So, but even that. So now you're looking at Viacom, MTV, Paramount. You'd like to think that these are multi-billion-dollar corporations, but that's not always the case. There's a budget, and the idea is, are people really going to sign up for Paramount Plus to watch a special about hair bands? Now, I think the answer has been yes, and our audience will speak whether or not they've done it. But yes, there's a budgetary concerns. You're licensing footage, and you're also trying to find people who tell the best stories. For example, who would you think would do a better interview, Bret Michaels or, Bobby Dahl, Ricky Rocket? Now, Bobby Dahl's a reclusive guy for the most part.
Right.
You want Bret. He's the front man. He's the guy. And in most of the cases of these interviews, you went with the guy. As far as interviews go, we'll start with that. The only person that I would say surprised me And I will tell you, it surprised Stephen Pearcy is Warren DeMartini is in this show. He's definitely reclusive. That's definitely a person who doesn't do a lot of interviews, if any.
Right.
And Stephen didn't know he was in it until he watched it. And so that was the one that surprised me. A lot of these other people, maybe I was surprised at the band member they chose. When they talk about Beavis and Butthead and Winger, I was surprised to see Reb Beach and Paul Taylor as opposed to Kip Winger. But as Stevie said, that's who was probably available. That's probably who was in town and could do it. So to start this documentary, we'll rewind and we're going to get to other people's questions. I see people have questions for Stevie. I see super chats. We're going to get to everything, but we got to start at the beginning of this documentary. The beginning is a lot of Motley Crue. Now, none of the members of Motley Crue are in this except for old footage, old interviews, historic interviews.
Correct.
Nikki Sixx has said that Motley Crue is working on their own documentary, and he didn't
Correct.
think.
I just saw that as well, literally within the last 24 hours, and I think maybe Nikki answered that when he does his Ask Six things on X. People spit out questions and he'll sit there for an hour and answer 100 people. And he did say that they're working on their own documentary. And it's probably safe to say that he was approached and asked directly because in addition to the Jackass stuff you mentioned, Jeff Tremaine, for all those who don't know, they'll recall maybe now, Jeff Tremaine actually directed The Dirt as well. So it's safe to say that Nikki and Vince and Tommy were all writing his speed dial, and he said, "Hey, I'm doing this. What do you think?" And Nikki said, "We're doing some anniversary packages. We're going through some guitar player problems or whatever was going on a year and a half ago." And then, now it's come to light that they're working on their own documentary, not a film, which was The Dirt was, but quote unquote a documentary.
And it's hard to sum up a band in 7 minutes. And so if you're Motley Crue, you might think, they're going to only say the same things that have been said a million times. Do we really want to comment on the car crash and those type of things?
Yeah.
Again, is that what makes, and so it's in there. Obviously, it's in there. They talk about Shout of the Devil, satanic messages, all the things that we remember of watching Motley Crue on the rise. And you know what? Motley Crue looks really cool. There's a lot of people who say, I saw the US Festival and was blown away. I've watched the US Festival video of Motley Crue on YouTube. I think it's pretty bad. I think that you see the beginning of a band that's not so great yet. And, their chords are not very long and they don't have much space. And they didn't really have great stage raps. But boy, if you edit that into a few clips, it looks like they were the biggest thing and nobody else looked like that and sounded like that.
Those stage costumes, I mean, after Kiss, nobody did a better costume. I mean, Kiss was without a doubt the creme de la creme. They're the Super Bowl champions. They're the Tom Brady, the Kiss costumes from the 70s. But Motley with the Shout at the Devil, I mean, that was like, and that's right. Think about this. Timing couldn't have been better. Had Motley Crue come out in 78 or 79 trying to wear that, they would have been written off immediately. But Kiss, by this point, by 83, they were doing Lick It Up. Gene was looking like an old man, no makeup. That Vinny was in the band, Eric Parr was in the band, and they had long thrown away all that stuff. They got rid of the gimmicks,
And bands that were doing it didn't become arena level bands. I'm talking about New York Dolls, one of the influential bands to have a glam. Angel. Yeah, these are bands that had a glam look, had catchy songs. Hanoi Rocks even, but they didn't all get the appeal. Motley did a lot of right things at the right time. This video documents it. Didn't really matter how well they played. That wasn't really the issue behind the band. And it's exciting to watch. I sometimes hate on Motley, especially now. There's so much nonsense. But you watch that old footage, and I felt like a kid again. Now, I want to point out, Wednesday and I are around the same age. We're fans. When this is happening, we're probably too young for Motley the first time around. Maybe I got into Motley Theater of Pain. So at the time that Wednesday and I are watching the bands portrayed, Stevie is in a band, and he's trying to make it. He's trying to be on the level of these bands. So for those watching, you're getting 3 different perspectives of a scene. But Stevie was a fan too. You were influenced by Motley Crue and those bands you were seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the Midwest. Wednesdays from the Carolinas. Jason, you're from the tri-state area, New York City. So everything that was happening in LA is, as much as this scene was just the mecca, we only saw what we read in Hit Parader or Circus Magazine at the time. And at some point, Rock Scene and Faces and Cream were starting to cover these bands. The early days that I started picking up magazines was probably in '83. And it was, a lot of Van Halen. Foreigner was still getting talked about. And occasionally you'd see a Supertramp or a Foghat mention, or Kansas, Styx. But those bands were going by the way of the dinosaur, because by '82, you had Loverboy, Def Leppard, you had came out in 83 with Pyromania, Rock Till You Drop, and all those songs. And then Motley came out at the end of '83. I saw that tour. They opened up for Ozzy, and this is March of '84 now. I just turned 18. I wasn't a metal kid, but it was in Wisconsin. So I had never heard anything about them. And if they were written about in the magazines, it was probably, the last 10 pages, a little black and white, almost what they would call in Metal Edge, like a rock on the rise. Hollywood's hot Motley Crue band put out, Too Fast for Love, a year ago, and now their new record, Shout at the Devil, like a little bit of hype. The same hype that was being given to Tuff and South Gang and Nitro, 5, 6, 7 years later at the back of Hit Parade or the back of Rock Scene. But it was definitely that image, seeing Motley Crue on that tour, seeing RATT on the Out of the Cellar tour, and seeing Van Halen on the 1984 tour, all within the summer, between spring and summer. I saw all three of those bands, and it was life-changing for me. And like you said, I then said, okay, I'm going to be that. I want to do that. I'm going to go after that. And I wanted to be exactly what I was seeing in David Lee Roth or Vince Neil and Stephen Pearcy.
When I saw Vince Neil in Circus Magazine for the first time, I swore I was seeing boobs. I thought I was seeing a naked chick. I was young enough to look at those pictures and go, oh my God, this is a naked chick. Now, one thing that I want to point out that the audience might know, but maybe not the younger people, is that the hair metal scene was happening at the same time as Michael Jackson and Madonna and, Cyndi Lauper, Leonard, Duran Duran. Yeah, it was,
the Romantics
was everywhere, and people were excited. And some of the bands that got to sneak into MTV in those early '80s, they really paved the way. So now talking about the special, and I know the comments, I want everyone to be part of it, and we will get to everyone. But the first part of it, we got a lot of Rudy Sarzo talking about the beginning of Quiet Riot. Quiet Riot's the first heavy metal band to have a #1 album, and he had a lot of experience. Now, some of the things they were saying, listen, if you want to nitpick this documentary, you'll find mistakes. Jack Russell, they show a picture of the singer for Helix. Mistakes are going to happen. People get so upset. There's some footage of Rudy Sarzo where they're talking about Quiet Riot. Well, Kelly Garney was in Quiet Riot before Rudy Sarzo. This isn't a thing where they're moving fast. This is fast moving for a short attention span. And if you're not there to it's like a presidential debate. You're not fact checking as you watch it. Not everything is going to be perfect. I thought Rudy Sarzo and Stephen Pearcy both came across very well. They did a lot of the interviews in that first part, and I liked what they said. Wednesday, what did you think about that first part?
That was my least favorite part of the series, and not that it was bad. I just felt like I knew a lot of that stuff, but that wasn't really my era, other than Motley Crue of that for me. So I was excited to see the other parts, but it was entertaining. Like you said, you wouldn't want to sit there and fact check everything because it was a little out of place, but it was entertaining. I like the animation in it too. I thought that made the stories a little cooler.
Thought it was great. I thought the animation really drove things home, especially on guys like David Lee Roth, who you're not going to get to appear on this.
Right.
To show these cartoons, they were fun, and it kept moving, because I really thought Am I going to be bored by this? There's another Paramount Plus series where they followed the days in the life of Kip Winger and Janet Gardner, and it
I
wasn't
watched
as
that too. Yeah.
yeah, not that it was bad, but it was not as fast moving,
No.
and it was
No.
more specialty. This had something for everyone, and I'll see in a minute if the people watching agree with us. But so that's the first part. I don't have any real notes on the first part. I enjoyed it. The second part gets into kind of where, especially me and Wednesday as fans, these are the bands that we really were getting into.
After
When I see, I travel every weekend and I see Mark Slaughter and Sebastian Bach. I'm younger. I was in high school in 1990 when Tuff was on Dial MTV. I was still calling Dial MTV. I was still at that age. So for me, Sebastian Bach is a rock hero. Sebastian Bach was the perfect person for my age. Here was someone who the youth's gone wild and I'm angry and I don't give a damn. He was from the East Coast and I related. But if you were from the generation before, you might go, oh, Sebastian Bach. There was different people. Same way that Dee Snider, who was not represented in this, was for me. 1984, I didn't want to take it. I wanted to rock. And so Twisted Sister is never mentioned. If they are, it's very brief if they are. Now, at one point, I try to justify and say, well, maybe this is the Los Angeles scene. But that's not the case. It's the hair metal scene. So Bon Jovi, in my opinion, and this is controversial maybe, is the biggest hair metal band of all time. Now, they might say they're not metal. They might say they're whatever. But I think that You Give Love a Bad Name and Living on a Prayer are the biggest hair metal anthems, two of them. And Wanted Dead or Alive is the real power ballad. Somewhere, I'm going to go out of order a little bit, like the special does. The special does move out of order. Nuno Betancourt says, more than words, MTV should be paying him a royalty for Unplugged. Did he not see Wanted Dead or Alive many years before? Did he not see the countless episodes of Unplugged that came on MTV before? So I think that Extreme joined into a trend that already existed. They didn't create the trend. But this is just me talking about some of the things that are happening. So yeah, so Bon Jovi's not really mentioned. Now, would Bon Jovi do interviews for this? Probably not. They probably would never refer to themselves as hair metal. But I feel like they're glossed over. The band Cinderella is never referenced in this. You see a clip in the background, and you'll hear Skid Row talk about, without Bon Jovi, we wouldn't have made it. Now, they don't mention that Bon Jovi also stole all their publishing. They did.
And Bon Jovi was also instrumental in Cinderella getting signed as well.
And same thing with the publishing. But so you would have thought that was a chance to mention, hey, Bon Jovi discovered these bands. Now, if you ask most of the guys in Skid Row or Cinderella, they would say, we'd rather sign our publishing over and become stars than be playing in New Jersey and nothing ever happened. But I thought that would have been interesting.
So, Jason, let me interject and say this. And I've obviously been privy to a little bit of inside information because I worked with these people. I was involved. And even in conversations I've had with some of the powers that be, so to speak, this was originally, they were hoping to do 6 episodes, but obviously it ended up being 3. So right there, that kind of cuts in half originally what they had planned. Was it going to be 6 40-minute episodes? And it turns out to be 3 40-minute episodes. Also, if you notice, there was footage from M3. M3's also thanked. And what happened is, I'm going to wager anything that they went to M3 last year, meaning whenever that was, May of 2023, and maybe even this year. And so they went to M3. They probably talked to Eric Baker and everybody and said, hey, we want to come in. We want to shoot some bands. We want to do some interviews. And at that point, it's M3 they're going to, because they know there's going to be 20 bands there, 6 or 8 on Friday night and 8 or 10 on Saturday. And I don't know, was it 3 days? Maybe more. There was a Sunday as well. So whoever's on the schedule Sebastian or Skid Row or Tom Kiefer or Bret Michaels or Danger or Vixen, whoever's on the schedule is really who ends up getting interviewed. I mean, going ahead to segment 3, there was a lot of TUFF, a lot of Trickster, a lot of Vixen, a lot of Kicks, and Skid Row. Those are probably the 5 bands that got featured the most in the third section. But it had to do with probably availabilities. Now, I don't know. Maybe they did reach out to Tom Kiefer and he just said, not interested. I don't want to be attached to a hairband documentary, because Tom has pushed himself more into the Nashville thing, and he's got 6-7 piece band with girl background singers, a little bit of a southern tinge to his music, going solo. And while he's still playing shows with the Bret Michaels and the Vince Neils and the Skid Rows and the LA Guns, he's definitely probably one of the guys from the industry that you could see maybe saying, I don't want to be involved in that. Not saying he said that, but that could be the case. As far as John's concerned, John Bon Jovi, also it's pretty well known that they have a documentary that just came out, right?
On Hulu, there's a mini series about them on Hulu.
It's a very, very expansive. It's a big documentary. They probably worked on it for multiple years, and so I heard from some of the powers that be that, that was also part of, like with the Motley thing. Hey, we did the Dirt. They're the biggest band. Yeah, we'd love to have them. And while we'll include them, they're going to pass because they're going to do their own documentary. And obviously, John Bon Jovi, like you said, you could ask him probably to do 10 of these and he'd probably turn down 10 of them. Yeah. Because if he's going to do something, it's going to be at the highest level, or it's going to be basically, our documentary, not the one that includes TUFF and Wild Side and Bang Tango. We want it to be about Bon Jovi, So Twisted Sister, again, that's obviously a huge band out of New York City. Kiss wasn't even really included either.
Good point.
And you think about that, they of course came well before the hair band era. They were out a full decade before Motley Crue. So it's really kind of hard to. It's just like doing an interview at a gig. When you show up to do Jason Green, waste some time with Jason Green, and you're on a show with 5 bands, you can't interview all 5 bands. You might get one guy this day and one somebody after the show, or somebody the next morning before you jump on the plane. But it'd be real hard to do that. And I think that's the case that it came down to with this crew traveling to whatever city they went to. What artists live there? Who's available, who's not?
Yeah, I think so too. And you make a point. I've interviewed almost everybody who's been in this thing, or at least met them or worked with them. And some of the stories I hear, you get a short version of it. Because, listen, each guy has a small amount of time. And not everybody is Mr. Personality. Not everyone talks in sound bites. Stevie Rachelle, you do talk in sound bites, which is good. You are a historian on this industry. And I think you came across very well. We'll get into that more. But I'll give an example of someone that I interviewed, Brian Forsythe. So Brian Forsythe is in this, and he does tell some compelling stories.
He does.
But he talks a lot about Poison. Well, in my interview, with any members of Kicks, they would all tell you that Poison stole a little bit from them. The lime green logo. Bret Michaels says, well, it's because it was the cheapest printer paper.
Right.
Kicks will tell you it's because that was our logo. Where did the name come from? Well, Bret Michaels says one story. Kicks will tell you they had a song called Poison on their album.
On their first album, there's a song called Poison. Exactly.
They will tell you that if you look at Steve Whiteman's moves, and then you look at Bret Michaels years later, they're very, very similar. Now, maybe Brian Forsythe told them that, and maybe they thought, we're not going to use this, and we're not going to rock the boat with Bret Michaels. But it is interesting. Now, Brian also told me that even though they believe that Poison was very helpful to them when they came to LA and did good things for them. And they don't look at it as a problem, but they do look at it. Now, you can't get into every little thing. It's great for my show. People want to know more about Kicks and Poison. You can watch that interview with Brian Forsythe. But as I'm watching, knowing, I'm waiting, will they go here? Will they go there? Vicky Hamilton is another one who's been on my show. Vicky Hamilton was never mentioned once in this documentary.
Right.
Brent Muscat of Faster Pussycat, when him and I first started working together over 20 years ago, he told me Vicky Hamilton got Faster Pussycat signed and 100% got Guns N' Roses signed. In his opinion, he said, I saw it. I know that she was responsible, and she had to sue, and eventually she was paid, which sort of proved that how involved she was. They talk about, Tom Zutaut and some of the executives. We had to get them a place. Alan Niven, who was very controversial, we had to get them this. We had to get them that. When Vicky Hamilton put a lot of her own money up to support a bunch of wacky guys to get them started and shop her demo. Same with Nikki Sixx coming to Licorice Pizza and trying to get with Vicky Hamilton to get it going. Poison, she was involved in so many bands, yet she was omitted. Did you notice that, Stevie?
I did, and there's a few players that could have been and should have been included. In addition to Vicky, Howie Haberman. Howie was probably more of the pockets, more of the money, even more so than Vicky. As a matter of fact, I think it was Howie that paid Vicky some money when he took over Poison at some point, because I think she was working with them as well. But yeah, Vicky's very instrumental in a lot of things that happened with all of those bands in the middle. And when I say the middle, I'm talking Poison, Guns N' Roses, LA Guns, Faster Pussycat, and Jet Boy. And just for the record, for all that don't really know, the pecking order was Poison was the biggest band. Jet Boy was the second biggest band. LA Guns and Faster Pussycat, I think if you look, they might have actually had their deals maybe before. Well, Guns N' Roses did put out the EP, but all of those bands kind of got signed simultaneously. And
they got
some
signed
of them
after
were,
Jet Boy. You're right. No, they got signed after Jet Boy. Jet Boy comes out of San Francisco. Mickey Finn was on the show. They were signed. There was a delay. They changed labels. They had to re-record the album.
then their bass player, they had a problem with Todd, so they fired him, and they hired essentially one of his and their idols in Sam Yaffa. And Todd Crew was only 21 years old, had his issues, and started, he was friends with Guns N' Roses. And at that point, they said, "Come to New York with us. We'll hang out. You hang out with us." And that happened in the late July of '87, where he actually OD'd in the hotel room in New York City, and essentially the word is he died in Slash's arms. So
he was it was a Ramada Inn in New York City, and Slash was there with an adult film star, and he died in a tub, and Slash came back and discovered him, and it's one of those controversial drug issue stories. But yeah, Jet Boy was supposed to be there. Brent Muscat told me also, Faster Pussycat, Guns N' Roses record comes out same day, same time. And the records are just moving like this. It wasn't until later that Guns N' Roses goes like that.
Correct.
And so there's a lot of that. Now, can you tell all those stories in 45 minutes? I was trying to explain about Jet Boy myself, because a lot of people sort of laughed Jet Boy off or didn't realize. I always talk about the bill that was Jet Boy, LA Guns, Faster Pussycat, Guns N' Roses. They show it in this special. Those bands played together a lot. And Jet Boy was right in there. LA Guns, I believe, and you're more the expert, Stevie, you were there, was signed last of all those bands. Faster
Correct.
was
and
signed.
The thing is, the LA Guns band that Tracey was playing with on the Strip, essentially he got a record deal. None of those guys are in the band. They weren't even in the band that recorded the record. Steve Riley came in after the fact, obviously from Wasp. They had Phil come over from England after Tracey dug him up and called him up. Obviously the girl thing had ended, and Phil was sitting in London or wherever he was playing club shows, and said, "You want to come over here and try this?" So he came over, ended up taking all of some of what was Paul Black's lyrics or part of his co-writing, and then maybe tweaking it a little bit, and then going in the studio. Kelly Nichols was also not in LA Guns. Kelly Nichols was in Faster Pussycat, and he had a motorcycle accident and broke his leg. And while he was healing, Faster Pussycat at some point got signed and was ready to go and shoot a video. So they basically kind of said, "We got to go," and they pulled Eric Stacey in. Eric Stacey basically joined Faster Pussycat last.
When Kelly Nichols broke his leg, he was on his way to celebrate them getting signed. He was on the way to a recording studio. They were celebrating,
Right.
and he broke his leg, and everything fell apart. And then essentially they got a new deal with Eric Stacey in the band. I feel like the first LA Guns record is a little bit more of a metal record than you know, Show No Mercy, One More some of the songs are heavy, as opposed to Faster Pussycat, that is your fun glam band. Poison, your fun glam band.
Right.
And then comes Guns N' Roses, which is going to be, you know, arguably one of the biggest albums of all time. You know, it's as you watch it, did anyone get the feeling that Tracey Guns was making his time in Guns N' Roses seem bigger than it was?
Well, you know, you could say he's maybe touted that at some point along the way, but the reality is, it's Axl Rose says it right in that clip.
Right.
Guns N' Roses is Tracey Guns and me, and it originally was going to be It was originally going to be Guns N' Rose, and then they just said, well, there's got to be more than one Rose. In other words, we're all Guns and Roses. So yeah, the fact that his name is part of the brand name is a pretty big deal. And the fact, I think it's also cool, and you know, shows a lot of humility with Tracey by him saying, you know, listen, he was admitting, you know, Axl was screwing around with ecstasy, Duff's an alcoholic, you know, Izzy's fucking looking at heroin, Steven's willing to do whatever, he's a follower. Okay, I'll do some of those too. And at some point, Tracey's like, Tracey is the youngest guy out of all them. He's only a couple months older than I am. I think he was born in January 66. Yeah. So, you know, I think, you know, Axl is 62, maybe Duff is 63 or 64. And, you know, that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're 22 and someone's 19,
yeah,
or 18, that sounds like a big deal. It's like being a graduating senior from college and you're going out with a girl that's, you know, still in high school. It's like, what are you doing with that little kid, you know? So, and then as Tracey said, hey, I still had braces. Like, I wasn't ready for it. You know, I don't think I can handle this. Like, I better quit or I'm going to die. But yeah, he did that. And then they all ended up getting deals. I mean, Tammy got a deal. You know, Tracey got a deal. Axl and Slash got a deal. Even Jet Boy got a deal. But Jet Boy, you know, they definitely got handed, you know, they got a raw deal per se, because the record had to be re-recorded and issues
comes out too late and maybe doesn't have the hooks that some of the other ones do. I've heard the Guns N' Roses story told differently than the movie, but everyone's heard it. Some people say that they were going to go play these gigs out of town and Tracey didn't want to go. And the drummer didn't want to go, and they hired Steven and Slash, and they hit it off and they bonded, and that became the band. Documentary tells it a little different. I don't think Tracey came off bad. Listen, this is a guy who has to sit and watch his former bandmates become the biggest band in the world. I was happy that Steven Adler was in there. I see Steven Adler all the time. I was just on the road with him. We did shows. We flew with him. He's the happiest guy. One of the things, he has a guy who tour manages him named Steve Sprite. They went to school together.
Steve's an awesome guy.
Awesome guy. And he's the only person I've seen to work with Steven Adler and really be effective. And he's an incredibly kind person. But he said they were in Australia and all these fans wanted to meet Steven Adler. And Steven Adler signed autographs for 3 hours, but he had to hug every person. And Steve Sprite said, you don't have to hug everybody. And Steven Adler said, you don't know the last time one of these people got a hug. And maybe these people could use some love. And it's without these people, I don't make it. And so I was glad Steven was in there. Steven doesn't like to do interviews. As far as my show goes, he feels he said everything he can say about Guns N' Roses. He also suffered from a stroke, and he's uncomfortable with his voice. So I was glad he represented himself and made the point that these guys were all a bunch of junkies, yet I took the fall. Alan Niven, and Wednesday, you're going to chime in on some of this too. Alan Niven.
I was just going to say that I heard that Tracey wasn't in Guns N' Roses because he kept playing in the toilet. He wouldn't actually come into the room, rehearse with the guys, and they were like, this is going to be a problem.
That
and
might be.
We found out later on it was a problem.
They foresee the
Yeah.
future. Alan Niven is in this documentary. He did manage Guns N' Roses, maybe for a shorter time, but he did manage them. And he also was managing the band Great White. There's a famous special, Guns N' Roses at the Ritz. Well, that was a Great White show, but Alan Niven convinced them to let Guns N' Roses headline because it would be good for both bands. Well, no one talks about Great White at that show. They all talk about the amazing performance of Guns N' Roses. Alan Niven also wrote the majority of songs for Great White. He is a co-writer on most of the hit songs. Obviously, Once Bitten, Twice Shy is a cover. But Alan Niven is I thought about having him on the show. He watches the show. If he sees something on the show he finds inaccurate, he will email me about it.
Right.
He is loud, and he is very almost Spinal Tap. I don't know if he was putting on a character. He had an earpiece in his ear in his interviews that I don't know why, like he was going to take a call at some point. He's loud.
He was wearing? I saw that. Was he wearing like a headset with a little mic right here? Is that what it was?
I think that's what it had to be because
it's kind of almost like one that you'd see like an announcer wearing at a sports game, where it's just like a little wire and there's a little microphone right there. I noticed that as well.
Because Jeff Tremaine would have mic'd him. They would have put him on like he mic'd you. They would have put a proper mic on him. So I don't know if it was just Alan's character. Now, I bet you there's some people who are going, oh my God, this guy's a douche. But there's other people who remember Alan Niven more than anybody because boy, was he loud and he was cursing. And we're going to talk. So we're talking about Alan's performance. And that brings up Jack Russell. And I want to take this question from AZ for Stevie. He says, speaking of metal history, does Stevie think Jack Russell, rest in peace, was denied the respect he deserved as a singer and OG strip godfather, especially in light of his passing?
Was he denied what?
He's asking if I think what he's saying, I'm paraphrasing, is that, listen, at the end of Jack's life, he was in very poor shape. He was sitting down. He was falling down. Did he lose his legacy? He's saying that, Jack was a big part of being on the Sunset Strip in Great White. Do you think that it hurt? Did the later part of his life hurt his legacy?
No, I don't think so. I mean, here's the thing. There's some guys, you just mentioned one of them, Steven. Steven's part of one of the biggest bands, one of the biggest records that ever been released and put on vinyl, cassette, whatever, Audible, music. But Steven's uncomfortable with, with his, maybe a little bit of his appearance or his voice, and he doesn't want to do all those interviews. Maybe he's not so proud. He doesn't speak the best, maybe kind of stumbles over his words a little bit. So a lot of times he just kind of steps back from it, There are guys, we've read stories about guys maybe, not feeling comfortable about themselves, whether they gained weight or didn't look a certain way and, let themselves go to hell. So there's a little bit of an embarrassment there. Like, okay, I'm just not going to go out. I'm not going to be seen. I'm not going to go on stage. I'm not going to play. I'm not going to put a current photo of me on Facebook, But Jack was, he was relentless. He was still going out there. The fact that they had to carry him on stage. I mean, me, myself, if I was to the point where somebody had to carry me on stage or I had to be wheelchaired through every airport, I wouldn't do it. I'm too conceited. I'm too vain. I have too many, call it what you want. I don't want to walk on stage and wear a colostomy bag. I just don't, it's just not going to happen, at least not in my life. So as far as how Jack went out, the guy was on stage in April in a condition that was questionable by anybody that saw those videos, and everybody that was at that show, everybody and their mother said, what is going on? And, Metal Sludge was one of the first and one of the sites that covered it, just to say, hey guys, I threw the book at him. I was like, you guys got to pull the plug. Is there any shame here? Can you guys are going to let your guy do this? You're going to let this happen and have him sit on the chair that way? And he couldn't even sing, much less talk or stand. So But then it was only a few months later that he actually passed away. So he was in a very bad condition. Maybe, you know, maybe there was financial needs. And at the end of the day, you know, everybody writes their own history. Everybody does their own thing. You know, I mean, Lane Staley went down in a ball of flames in his apartment. Nobody even knew he was dead for weeks. Kurt Cobain took another route. You know, some guys have to deal with things differently, you know, whether it's sickness or.
Well, rock and roll has its own memory. Kurt Cobain is more famous now than he ever was. I can't go anywhere without seeing a young person wear one of his shirts.
Yeah.
They don't just remember his death, they remember his life. Well, Elvis Presley, obviously, you know, the biggest musician of all time. Yes, we remember Fat Elvis joking about eating people's food at the shows and those kind of things. But people also remember Elvis, and they're making movies about Elvis being a star. Chuck Berry was hiding cameras in women's restrooms, but he's still the greatest. You know, he probably invented rock guitar for many people. So I think Jack Russell will be remembered. And if, in fact, sadly, in his death, he might be remembered better. I think right now, people who discover Great White will look at the band and go, you know, that guy was pretty cool. They're not looking at the guy on stage falling down. They're looking at the original guy who had a great voice. And I think that people start to remember people differently. It was painful. Some people have stayed at the party too long. We see them, we know who they are, but yet our memories go back to the records that they made, and we have that. Now, I hate to interrupt this, but here now, when Wednesday, when you're on the show, there's a different audience that likes to talk to you. I kind of found it funny. Corey Taylor is in this series. And a lot of people did not like Corey Taylor being in the series.
Right.
Corey Taylor is from the band Slipknot. The band Slipknot comes out of Iowa. Joey Jordison was one of the founders of Slipknot, also comes out of Iowa. And Joey Jordison is responsible for discovering Wednesday 13, you know, to bring your music to a bigger level in the band, the Murder Dolls. I thought that Corey Taylor made some good points. And he spoke as a fan. Corey Taylor's also younger than us. You know, he's around me in Wednesday's age, I would guess.
I thought he was very, very well spoken, I thought.
Yes.
He's got big ears, I noticed. Very big ears. But I see why he wears the mask. But he lives in Las Vegas. He's a nice guy. He's an expert on rock and roll. And but I know there were people watching. Why is there so much Corey Taylor? And another one was, why is there so much Steve-O? I was with them on Steve-O for a minute, but I thought Steve-O's story about meeting Motley Crue and maybe influencing his drug use was a great story. And why was Steve-O in it? Jeff Tremaine directed it. He created Jackass. Well, there is the connection. And maybe Corey Taylor brings in different people. Maybe Corey Taylor gets some Slipknot fans to watch this who are not as aware of hair metal. Corey Taylor's music outside.
Corey's all over the those In Search of Darkness horror documentaries that are really cool too. And he's the same way. He's just a fan, and I think he threw his name in the hat on these things. And Corey's an awesome dude. He's a big fan, just like we are of stuff. And so yeah, I didn't think that was odd to have him in there talking. I thought the stuff he said was cool. I was afraid it wasn't going to be good. It had potential to maybe not be, but it was good.
I felt like you felt. I thought when I saw him, oh no, here it comes. But I thought he made good points. I thought Steve-O made great points as well. Now, anyway, Wednesday, here is one of your fans. They super chatted $49.99. So how could I not put this question and comment up?
Wow.
Denny's next time. Denny's. All three of us. Denny's.
Yes, I agree. This is from, I don't even know. I got to put my glasses on. I mean, I'm going to need a decoder ring. This is STXR. That's their username. Thank you.
Stixer. That's like the drummer of Shotgun Messiah.
Yes, or Steel Panther. Anyway, Stixer, thank you. His first comment is something about, maybe it's a typo, ASJEJENW. Anyway, I'm a huge fan of you, Wednesday. Can we please be friends?
Yes.
HHHH.
For $49.99, yes. But for a limited time, we could be friends until that runs out.
He said he would die if you say yes. Ugh. No. I know this is off topic.
Yes, we can be friends. We are friends now.
There has been 350 people watching the whole time.
wow.
And I want to give them a voice too. I have one more note that I wanted to make, which, and then I want other people to talk, and we'll all jump in. Part 3 is a little bit about the decline of the industry. It's about the rise and the decline of
But that
what would be
was
called
my time. That was the look at that. See?
the light show, fireworks. Yeah.
Yeah, the third was my favorite episode, and then Stevie shows up and he's through the whole thing. So made it even better. I texted him right after I was done. I was like, "This is awesome."
Stevie, to me, has the, and I'm not saying it just because you're here, has the line of the whole show. When Stevie talks about the decline, he admits that his band isn't a multi-platinum band, and he didn't get to headline those arenas, but he did what every kid dreamed of. Every kid dreamed of getting on that stage, being on MTV, having chicks, whatever. He did it. And to me, an interesting story. The reason why Stevie's TUFF diaries that you could read on Metal Sledge are interesting to me is not how famous Stevie is. It's not about that. It's about, does he have a story? And I always say that about musicians who write books. You could have the most crazy story, but do you have something that's interesting? Do you have something that people relate to? Everyone relates to playing the guitar in the mirror or singing in a hairbrush. Yeah, everyone did. And Stevie did too. And yet he did it. And he didn't go in there and say, I was the greatest. Because some of these bands that might have been third tier or smaller still act like they were big. If Steve Sax Summers was in there, he would have told you he was bigger than Motley Crue. Or Chips Enough would have told you he was bigger than Poison. But Stevie was humble and realistic and explained, I did it. You made your dream come true. Stevie still makes a living in the music industry, through the Metal Sludge website, through re-releases of records, through touring. TUFF still exists. And it shows that he believed in this. And it's something that he was part of. And that's why I was happy to hear from him. And I was happy to hear from Steve Brown, because they lived it. And even Nuno Betancourt making the reference about, would I rather have more than words or work in Burger King? Yeah, you'll take more than words. They did it. And I think that that's the ultimate story and everybody's dream. Not many people have that story. And so to watch it wrap up, I didn't think it was a sad ending. They could have said, and then grunge came and we all died. That's what they usually do in these kind of things. Well, grunge didn't necessarily kill it. As they point out, there was an overkill. Now, I think that TUFF wasn't necessarily part of that overkill. Maybe by the time your video came out, maybe it was a little bit, you were looked at as third tier. But there was stuff that was coming out that was imitating TUFF. You were getting really,
right.
As you got into Roxy Blue and Tora Tora, and no offense to any of these bands, some of them might have some great album tracks. Right. Slick Toxic, Lay's Rocket. I mean, I don't even know what I'm saying half the time. I remember them being pinups. There was overkill.
Right. Well, what happens too? It's like I said in the documentary. It's like whoever gets to the finish line first, essentially, everyone else behind me is copying or they're following me. Jizzy Pearl talked about this in one of his video vlogs where he talked about being on the Strip and getting signed was like getting a golden ticket to Willy Wonka land. And I think somebody else might have even said that at some point, maybe in the documentary or recently in an interview I saw. And it's true because you had literally hundreds of bands, perhaps maybe a few thousand bands in and around the greater Los Angeles area. When you put together the San Fernando Valley, Orange County, Riverside, San Bernardino, Los Angeles County, the South Bay, all these areas, all kinds of clubs all over the place, and everybody's trying to get the record deal. Well, in a calendar year, back in the day, we'd read about Love Hate got signed, Warrant got signed, Salty Dog got signed, eventually TUFF gets signed. And of course, we're reading about the East Coast. Here's this band called Skid Row or Trickster. Kick Tracey got a record deal out of here. Then you had Dangerous Toys from Texas. There's only so many bands that get a record deal. And by the time we got our record deal, it was 90. It came out in 91. And everybody just went, oh, look, they want to be Poison. Even like in the documentary, Richard Beanstalk said you have a band like Poison that came out in 86 with Look What the Cat Dragged In. And now TUFF's on the Strip in 87. We're immediately considered to be a copycat of Poison. But I had been playing with my friends in the basement since 1983 and 84. And meanwhile, Todd and George and Michael in Phoenix, they were also playing with their friends in the garage in 83 and 84. And we were all emulating Van Halen, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden. I thought Loverboy was awesome. I liked Honeymoon Suite, Billy Idol. I mean, all that stuff is what made me go, now I'm going to be in a band. And then eventually, obviously, it was Motley Crue and RATT that really pushed it over. But it wasn't until 3 years later, I never knew about Poison until the fall of 1986. At this point, I'm about 3 years into this. I'm trying to going my hair long and bleaching it and putting on wristbands and bandanas. But I'm not doing that because of some guy named Brett Michaels from Pennsylvania who got a record deal. I'm doing it about some guy named Dave from Pasadena and some kid named Vince who grew up in Hollywood. That's where I was. If I was copying anybody, I was trying to be those guys. But Brett being a couple years older and Jani being a couple years older, they obviously raced to Hollywood, got here before me, and eventually they got a deal. If TUFF got signed in 86 or 87, because we came here in 84, 85, and Jani and Brett were 2 or 3 years younger than us and got here in 87 and got signed in 90, it could be a role reversal. And the same goes into effect when you talk about who your manager is and who your friends are. Dave Sabo going up with this guy named John, who used to ride dirt bikes with, and they had a pact when they were in 7th or 8th grade. Hey, if you make it, you'll help me, and if I make it, I'll help you. Okay, great. And then they went skateboarding or riding their bike down to the store to buy a soda and a candy bar. Neither one of them probably thought, like, in 5 or 7 years, John's going to be selling 10 million records and headlining arenas, and then he can help me get a deal. Well, that friendship, and then John's manager, this guy named Doc, who managed Motley Crue and the Scorpions and Bon Jovi, and John's like, if I help my buddy out, you want to jump? Yeah, I'll help you. We can do that. And then they call up the guy at Atlantic and say, can you give these guys a deal? Oh, they got a new singer. He's a good-looking kid. He's 20 years old. He's tall with long hair. Here's the demo. Sign him. Put it out. Boom, through the ceiling. If you switch those and you put TUFF with Doc McGhee on the Bon Jovi tour in 1989, and you give Skid Row and Sebastian the deal with Titanium Atlantic in 1990, managed by Brian Kushner from Power Star, that says, yeah, I can get you a couple shows with Brittany Fox. Same can be said for Wild Side, Tora, Roxy Blue. Push all those guys to get their deals in 85 or 86. Push Guns N' Roses to 91. I mean, push Nirvana back 3 more years, or push Nirvana up to 85. I mean, they did have their record Bleach came out in 89. Nobody cared. Nobody cared about the first Soundgarden EP or the first Screaming Trees EP. None of that stuff was happening at the time in 80, 88, 89, or 90. But by 91, 92,
timing is everything. Timing and connections is so much to it.
Yeah.
As somebody who might be an insider, when you see Dave Sabo and Doc McGhee talk, you think about there's some legal stuff involved, and I don't even know how much of it's public, so I'm not going to say too much. But with the Moscow Peace Festival, where Doc McGhee was involved, and these guys were going there to raise money for charities when they're all drunk and on drugs, and Doc McGhee gets punched by Motley Crue, and a lot of this stuff was interesting. They make Doc McGhee out to be a lot more of a genius than I don't know if he is or was, but maybe he was in the right place. Maybe he made some good decisions. Maybe he had some money, but maybe he also made some really bad legal decisions, and maybe Dave Sabo paid for some of those decisions. Again, I don't know how much is out, but when I'm watching them talk, in my mind, I'm going, wow, if people knew these real stories. Now, the last thing I wanted to say before we let the audience discuss with us is, I never thought I'd say I feel like I need to stand up for Jani Lane and Sebastian Bach. When I watch the documentary, we hear a lot about both of their downfalls. And they both had, well, now listen, Sebastian's still with us. He did have some downfalls, obviously, and some issues with the band Skid Row. Jani Lane had massive addiction problems. He was an incredibly nice guy. I knew him. Wednesday, you met him before, I'm sure, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and Stevie, you obviously knew him. The stories we've documented on this show.
Yeah.
I liked him. He was talented. When I see Stephen Sweet, I was surprised to see Stephen Sweet be the voice of Warrant. I think to myself, without Jani Lane, there probably is no Warrant. He wrote every song. Some people would say that he played he's the only person who actually appears on the first 2 Warrant albums. I'm not slamming Warrant. I'm a fan. Joey Allen's been on my show. I like those guys. I think Beau Hill gave them a raw deal. I've defended them. But no Jani Lane, probably no Warrant. They had a singer before.
Adam
Really,
Shore.
Adam Shore. Yeah, and Adam will probably be on the show one day. My friend Max, who was in my band, played drums. But
Max Mazursky.
But Jani is the guy. And
He's the reason I listen to Warrant, and he's the reason I still listen to Warrant.
He's everything
He's
about
the talent of that band. Not to say those other guys aren't good. Those guitar players are great together. I was just listening to Warrant earlier today. That Mr. Rainmaker song. That's a cool song. Great guitar playing on it. But Jani's voice outplays those guys to me. So yeah.
He's the guy. You know, where people say Nikki Sixx wrote every Motley Crue song, maybe he did. But with Jani Lane, you know that those Warrant songs are his. There's no band without Jani Lane. Those records don't happen. Sebastian Bach did not write the songs on the Skid Row albums. Maybe he wrote a little on the second one. Definitely not on the first. The songs were done. But without Sebastian Bach's delivery, without him being that front man, I don't think that band goes anywhere. I don't think it happens.
But you know, I will say this. I thought the Sebastian stuff, they covered all the bad stuff. But I thought that story that Nuno told about him was probably one of the craziest stories I've ever heard.
A good story.
And where he's going to punch out the captain of the plane. That's top tier rock and roll debauchery. That made Sebastian in my mind look cool again for anything that was said bad about him.
I don't think it hurts him. And I think Rachelle does say, if we didn't have Sebastian, it doesn't happen. I think Rachelle was honest.
He actually didn't. He didn't say that, and he was very calculated. His words were, "If it wasn't for all 5 of us back then, none of that happens."
Right.
And of course, you notice that Sebastian, or I should say Rachelle and Snake, I don't think they ever actually mutter his name. Like they don't want to say his name, but they talked about it. But yeah, Rachelle did say, if it wasn't for all 5 of us. And you know what you just said about Jani, you know, there's a common thread with a bunch of us. I mean, Warrant started in '84 with Jerry and Eric and a guy named Josh playing lead guitar, and then Max and Adam. And they were playing the scene for years. And they were also opening for Poison and played with Guns. And they played with all the bigger bands. But it wasn't until Jani came in 1986 with Steven, and then Joey came in the spring of '87. That was the final, you know, those were the final pieces of the lineup. Similarly with me, Michael, Todd and George started playing with, you know, their version of TUFF in early '85. Then Michael comes in. They had a different singer named Terry who went off to play, to perform in the Ice Capades because he was a professional level skater of all things. And then they had Jim Gillette come in, moved to LA in '86, played 4 shows. Jimmy says, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go solo, go do my heavier project, which ultimately became Nitro. Then I come in as the missing piece in the summer of '87. So that's a full 2.5 years, almost 3 years since those guys started this brand. Same applies for Skid Row. They're playing around with, what's the guy's name?
His name's Matt, I think.
Matt Fallon. Yeah. So they're playing New Jersey, New York, tri-state area, you know, and even had John looking at them, and Doc, like Doc said, that was a great quote. He was good, but good's not good enough. You know, we need great. We need a superstar. And, you know, it's corny to say that. It really is. But that's what I was. That's what I was in TUFF. I mean, you see the photos of what I represented as a young, just turned 21, blonde-haired, blue-eyed. You know, I was ready to take on the world. You know, that's what you needed. That's what they needed. Oh no, here comes the Tuttle photo. So I was the missing piece. I was that pinup, you know, better than good guy that suddenly joined the band, and it made all the difference literally almost overnight, where we became this hot flavor, and now
They
we're starting to
wanted
get national
someone like
press.
you. You had what they wanted. What I like
Yeah.
about your tour diaries also is that you're brutally honest. That you went out and looked for a hair piece or a weave. You were honest. I wanted to look like those guys. Well, your look was a big part of Tough. Those pinups were a big part of any band at that point. If you didn't have it, you probably didn't make it. Oh, good. Wednesday's fan is back with another $49.99. We're going to be
Damn.
having
Wow.
everything at Denny's.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to
All
fly
right.
to. I'm gonna have to. Me and Wednesday are gonna fly to Vegas to go to dinner with Jason.
Yes.
Jason, you can just fly in on that.
Mhm. All
But
right.
yeah,
Just
so
meet us at that
I
Denny's
had
right there at the airport.
I had Leif Garrett's hair. I had this shaggy, shoulder length, feathered kind of hair that was growing out, but it's like we needed me to have Shout at the Devil hair. So Michael's like, let's get you some extensions and add 6 or 8 inches with length to the back. So I didn't look like I was in the Partridge Family. I needed to be a little bit more metal looking. So yeah, we had to add some hair extensions for the first couple years. By
Yeah,
the
but
time
you
my
keep
hair got
going.
long, it was no longer cool to have long hair. It was like went out of fashion.
I showed Kelly Nichols an LA Guns record, and I said, "Can you point to the people wearing a hairpiece on this record?" And he goes, "Oh, sure." And he slammed his finger down on 2 people. I won't
Yeah.
say the 2, but a lot of people were trying to fit in and have a look. And I think when I was a kid, I watched videos and I thought, "Wow, everyone has such amazing big hair." I didn't
Right.
realize that a lot of people, some people in that documentary talking now, present day, were wearing hair pieces. I'm not going to name anybody, but there were some.
me and my friend used to argue over people's hair, and like he would be like, "Nah, I think that guy's wearing a wig," or I would say, "I think that guy's wearing a wig," and he'd be like, and he would get mad about it. No, there's no way. There's no way Michael Kelly Smith is wearing a wig. That
Right.
is his natural hair, bro. I'm like, I
I
don't
remember
know. It looks the same all the time. I don't know.
right. Like Eric Brittingham. When I first saw the Night Songs record with Cinderella, I was like, his hair is, almost to his waist, and it's just perfectly straight blonde. Like it's literally like 36 inches long. It's like, is that really his hair? And I'm, at this point, mine's touching my collar, so I was just like, how long did that take to grow that way?
Yeah, no, it was I think we wanted to believe at that point. Okay, I'm going to let the audience in. First, we'll finish Wednesday. Your big fan, Stixer, is a female she'd like you to know, and she would like to chat with you on social media. I'm sure you'll write back to that. I'm sure this is an honest.
I'm not much of a chatter on there, but thank you for being a female and a fan.
Yes, and that is the best you can say. 350 people have stayed with us for almost 90 minutes. It's their turn to talk because they talk.
I'm going to show you this, Jason. I sent this to Stevie after I watched that documentary, and he was like, "Oh," he said, I was that guy in my bedroom." This is a picture of me in my bedroom.
Amazing.
How great!
And I'll point out some stuff here. I'm wearing a Tough T-shirt that I ordered probably straight from Stevie. This is the Tough, and then right over here is the
Tough poster.
The Tough poster. You can see Chase right there, and Poison right above it. Motley Crue and Poison, and then right beside it, Todd Chase is the Toxic Avenger. So some things have never changed. And then Kiss is in the back. I see Every Mother's Nightmare over here. Bang Tango's around there. Dangerous Toys is somewhere around there. But it's crazy. Like,
Wednesday, I gotta tell you, I'm disappointed in something.
Yeah.
Dude, you got like a Stratocaster looking bass. You needed a Warlock or something. You were dropping.
Dude, check this out. That's Christmas morning. The year before, I asked for a guitar.
Right.
I'm gonna play guitar, and I didn't learn. And I went, "Oh well, that's because it's got too many strings. Maybe I need to be a bass player. Get me a bass." So Santa Claus brought the bass. Parents didn't understand what I wanted, and that's what I got. So that picture of me is me trying to act like I'm happy that I got bass, but I am not happy at all. I'm thinking about what spray paint I could get to make that thing look like a Bobby doll
Neon
bass.
green, cut some
Yeah.
angles on.
In that picture, you can see this is me. This is my smile. Mom's like, "You better take a picture."
Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Okay.
Wednesday, you were in the TUFF fan club, right?
Yes. Yeah. TUFF was my first club concert, and Warrant Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood was my first arena concert.
Wow.
And
So,
and you wrote to Stevie, right?
yes, in the back of Metal Edge, or not the back of Metal Edge, or the Rock on the Rise. I think I just wrote, I don't think I even really wrote, because I've been writing the bands for a while. I realized half the time they weren't going to read it. So I wasn't going to waste my time most of the time. So I just think I put, send a SASE was, send something. And Stevie wrote back to me and signed a flyer, the Hell Just Froze Over Tough flyer.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even know what your name was. I thought it's Stevie Rachelle has signed this. Who is Stevie Rachelle? And I'm trying to figure, because I didn't know your name. You wasn't in the magazines. You couldn't look it up.
Stevie Rockefeller.
I didn't know. I was like, who is this guy? And then, so you were the first to ever establish contact. And I went, oh, I can talk to one of them. This is my band. This is my band. What else? I'll order your t-shirt. I'll join your fan club. What else? I'll join I need the Tough Muff Mansion. I need the keys.
Great.
Those things matter. And the people who looked out for their fans. I tour with Dana Strum all the time. Dana told me he consciously made the decision to treat the fans good. It's going to work. Not just the hot chicks, but we're going to be nice to people. We're going to sign autographs, and we're going to have a hotline, and we're going to write back, and we're going to do those things. And they still do it to this day. I'll give them that credit, but it means a lot. Same to me as a fan. I can tell you everyone who is nice and everyone who is a jerk. Sometimes I tour with people who are nice and jerks. It's funny. You never know where you're going to see people. I said this before. I'll thank Stevie for bringing Wednesday and I together. Stevie wrote me and said, listen, well, before I get to that, I'll tell you, when this show started, when I had maybe 2,000 subscribers, Stevie reached out to me and said he liked what I was doing. He had some advice for me. And Stevie was smart enough to be involved. He came on the show. We talked. We promoted. We co-branded ideas. We did things together. He's here now. And Stevie he's a good guy. I once said early on, you might hate Stevie because maybe he writes a controversial headline. And Stevie took issue with it. He said, anyone who knows me knows I'm a loyal friend and I'm a good guy. And I see that knowing him now for a few years. But he told me you would like to have Wednesday 13 on your show. You guys are going to be playing with horror action figures and talking about movies. And he couldn't have been more right. Wednesday and I have hit it off and have been chatting, and he's been on the show every week since. And it was funny. We all went to see the OC Hair Metal Festival together. And, to see this bond. It's rare you meet people in this industry that you trust even, but they're people who are loyal. They're people who share similar interests, and I'm so fortunate. Hold on, I hate to interrupt, but Wednesday's a female friend is back. She said, "That's fine. I'm coming to meet you next month. I'm excited. I was going to give you my social, but Super Chat won't let me anyway." I think she means social media, not a social security number. But she's going to come to the Wednesday meet and greet. You can come to the Wednesday meet and greet too. Go to officialwednesday13.com. Next month kicks off the tour. Wednesday's hitting the road. We'll talk about it more before the show's over, but go to his website, buy a meet and greet, and we'll talk about that more. But I got to let the fans in because
I was going to say, take some questions, Jason. Just start rapid firing questions for me or you or Wednesday, whatever they got.
We're discussing Nothing But a Good Time, the uncensored story of the 80s hair metal. It's on Paramount Plus right now. Listen, sign up for a 7-day trial. If you don't like it, cancel. If you do like it, sign up, get a deal, whatever. I think you're going to like this. You got 3 people here who are all pretty hard critics. I can tell you that. We all enjoyed it. We're also people who probably know a lot more about the industry than most, and we still all enjoyed it. That's the best recommendation I can give you for this Nothing But a Good Time documentary. All right, I'm going into the comments.
I just realized something. I was telling you, my buddy that we were arguing over Michael Kelly Smith's hair. We also had we had many conversations about Blackie Lawless. Now, I'm a huge Wasp fan. I like still to this. I listen to them quite regularly. Blackie's one of my favorite vocalists too. But me and my buddy always asking like, why is he not wearing a shirt sometimes? Why has he got a little bit of man boob, a little bit there back in the day? My friend had the door poster and we were staring at it and it made us feel awkward. It was weird. Did anybody ever talk to Blackie about this? Like, hey, maybe don't do that. But he did it.
I don't know. Blackie Lawless was in the New York Dolls. Most people don't know that, but he replaced Johnny Thunders in the New York Dolls before this Wasp explosion. I was happy to see my late friend Steve Riley in the special. The first episode, I believe, was dedicated to him. It was nice to see him in there. He was in Wasp. He was in LA Guns. He was a part of it. There's 375 comments. I'm going to go all the way back. I'm going to try to put out as many of them as I can for the ones.
I have an idea, Jason.
Yes.
Let's do this. You go back as far as you can, and let's do this like Family Feud. Let's rapid fire the answers. So whether it's me or you or Wednesday, let's keep the answer under 10 seconds. And that way we can answer as many as possible and we'll just rip through them.
I think that's very fair. And so I'm going to go back here. It's going to take me a second. I'm scrolling away. Well, yes, we're going to give you rapid fire and we'll try to get to as many as we can. And give me a second. I'm still scrolling. I mean, this is going back. This is going back 90 minutes, but I want to let people ask questions, ask comments, and I'm still scrolling. I'm glad that we could join you. I will be in Memphis, Tennessee this weekend. Jonesboro, Arkansas, Stephen Pierce of RATT, and then I'm off to, I'm going to go to Graceland if my kidney stones allow it. All right, here we go. I'm going to start with some comments. Jay Fry TV says, Stevie should be the mayor of the Sunset Strip. A lot of people saying hello and a happy hump day. A lot of people commenting, hoping that I'm doing okay with my kidney stones. I'm doing good so far. The Wednesday 13 Army is here saying hello, ghouls. Okay, let's say a lot of people just saying hello, which is always nice. And we'll give them some time and we'll take some of those. Lisa says, I noticed the documentary Sebastian wasn't interviewed, even though the last episode had a lot of context about him. Well, I'll answer that fast. I don't think Snake and Rachel would appear if Sebastian was in it. I think that would be the first answer to that. M is here and saying hello to me and saying hello to Wednesday. She probably didn't know that Stevie would be here just yet.
Also, I'll add to what you said, Jason, and I think that the documentary said, hey, let's get one guy or occasionally two guys from each band. As you saw, everybody interviewed was either a single person. Occasionally you'd have a pair, Snake and Rachel. You also had Kelly and Steve. But for the most part, it was, one representative from every band.
One of the things that was interesting about Kelly and Steve is you had Kelly and Steve, but you also had Tracey Guns. So you had what the crossover was. Steve Riley was in Wasp and Kelly and Tracey was in Guns N' Roses. So you definitely had some crossover, but it was interesting to see them. Obviously, they did not get along. Okay, a lot about my kidney stones. I'm going to try to keep this to the rock and roll other than my stones. Okay, let's see here. A lot of people saying they hope I feel better. Thank you so much. Dr. Paul Shortino offering some remedy for stones. I don't think I would trust it, though. Probably not the safest thing. I'll say as I'm scrolling, whenever I go on tour with these bands, I ask them. We played an arena show with Steven, and Matt Thorne and Blas Elias are both in the band. I said, did you guys ever think you'd play arenas again? Same to Jizzy, who's opening with Quiet Riot. And Blas told me, I knew this had a shelf life. I knew it. There was no part of me that thought I would get to do this my whole life. I'm going to live it up while I can. And the fact that I get to play music again and that anyone cares is a good thing. And that's the consensus on most of those bands. Matt Thorne told me, toured extensively with Dio. Never did he think at 62 years old that he would be able to do it again. And that's why I think at the end of this special, it leaves room for these bands to play just one more time. I think these package shows are good. I'm so happy when I get to go out with all these bands. I think shorter set times are a good thing. Let's have 45 minutes from each band, 50 minutes. Give us the songs we remember and give us more of the bands we love. And you know what? Let's have TUFF on the bill. Let's have some of the bands that maybe weren't the biggest one, but give us some. We did a show this weekend with Steelheart. Most people I know said, who the hell is Steelheart? Steven didn't know anything about Steelheart. There were a lot of fans there wearing their shirts. They were supportive. They were buying their merch because when did they get to see that band? And so I think there's life for all the bands, if you will.
And how good did Mike sing?
He's incredible. The guy's incredible.
Yeah. And he's 60 years old. He's also in great shape, takes great care of himself. I saw them back in the day, but I did a show with him last year in Peru, about a year ago. And man, what a voice. I mean, just powerful in that high end. I mean, to sing those parts of those couple of songs, and that guy's got a massive following in parts of Asia too. Like the couple of the videos he's got are like, 150 million views. I mean, couple of real big hits. But yeah, he's got an
So he's like a
amazing
David
voice.
Hasselhoff in somewhere.
Yeah, hey, Hasselhoff in Germany does stadiums.
He's
Crazy.
also the voice of Marky Mark in the Rockstar movie, which has Blas Elias in it as well.
That's a good soundtrack, and his vocals are great on that.
Yeah.
He plays that live too now. He plays that as their song, or maybe it is. I don't know.
And he's above and beyond all that, he's a good guy. I got to know him.
How do you say his name though? How can you be friend? You can't even say his name right. It's like Stevie Rachelle and Michael Makatrigovic.
I believe he's Mile. I think that's how you say his first name.
Yeah,
but
I think he's Croatian. Yeah, he's Croatian. So it's a very tricky name. And I guess the label at some point back then wanted him to go by Mike because it sounded more American. And I think he, Mike Metachevic or whatever, but he went with it at first. But his real name is, the short version is Mili, Mili, but it's a longer Croatian name that he goes by.
Yeah,
everyone calls him Mili.
They did make him Mike for a minute. A Rolling Gal Lucky 7 Points at the Corey Taylor wrote the foreword for the Nothing But a Good Time book. So that's another reason why you would see him in it. You can buy that book in the description. Click on the link. You can buy it.
And aside from the book being 300 pages or 400 pages, there's about 8 or 10 pages of full color photos, which TUFF has a half page, as you see.
Rockin' Roger says Stevie's record covers is awesome. Thanks for the autograph and TUFF guitar pick. If you go to Stevie Rachelle's website, Stevie, where can they get this cover CD? Tell them.
The cover CD is just came out about a month ago. It's got my version of Summer of '69. It's called Summer of '89, and it's got 10 songs on it. It's available on Amazon. It's available on eBay, and you can buy it at the store at both the TUFF website and of course Metal Sludge. Go to the store and just click on CDs. It's my 4th solo CD, and this one is all cover songs, and it's great. It's gotten a great review, and honestly, it's sold, and I say this for no other reason than it's truthful, and it's kind of a shock. It's sold very well, very fast. It's moved way better than the last couple, night and day. I'm kind of shocked, but the Summer of '89 song is definitely the buzz song that people are talking about, and it's selling well. But everyone, find Wednesday online. Go to Wednesday's site, buy our stuff. We're
support the guys for coming on here. By the way, the song was engineered by Matt Thorne, a regular.
Matt Thor is the man.
Eddie Trunk does not like the term hairband. Now, I could joke about this, but I think this is a serious thing. He does yell at people about using that term. He thinks it's derogatory. I wonder what his opinions on the movie are. Would he promote it? Was he at the party?
He was not at the party, no.
I wonder what he would think. I think
you mean the release party last week at the Rainbow?
Yes.
Yeah, the release party was Tracey Guns was there, Billy Rowe from Jet Boy, myself, of course, with Michael Lean, TUFF drummer, Audie and Mark Kendall from Great White were there, Rudy Sarzo was there. Alan Niven was there. Tom Zutaut was there. Of course, Jeff Tremaine was there, the director, a bunch of other people on the staff. The co-writers, Tom Bonjour and Richard Greenstock were there. Steve-O was not there, and nor was Corey Taylor, but Wee Man, Jason Acuna, the little man from Jackass, was there hanging out. It was packed. The room was full of people, and I will say that there was a lot of laughs. Alan Niven got a lot of laughs with his harsh, critical commentary. But there was also a couple of points in the room when Rudy told the story about Randy, and when Michael Monroe talked about Razzle, you could have heard a pin drop. And I know that there was some choked up rock stars in there, and there was some swelled up, tear-filled eyes. Those were a couple of moments that the whole rainbow was just silent, and it was a little challenging for us to sit there, I think, and watch that. But all the respect.
Steven wanted to go. I wanted to go. We talked about it. It just wasn't possible. We were traveling. Steven, it was interesting. At the end of the documentary, they chose to have Warren talk about Robin Crosby, and Warren didn't really want to talk about it. He was uncomfortable.
But he did. He said, "I don't want to talk about it," and then he did.
And then he did. Yeah, they fished it out of him.
But I thought that was great because you know what? That was very real. And there was even the camera was close on him, and you could see, the pain in his eyes. I mean, let's just think about that for a second. Those guys were in a band together for 10 years, toured the world, went from kids that couldn't afford a TV dinner to millionaires, and then they watched their friend, and I say this with all respect, but they watched him rot. The guy lived a crazy life and eventually died. Think of the friendship that you two have created just in a year. Now multiply that times 10, and if something like that happened in 10 years and you were suddenly split like that and you watched one or the other go down, I mean, Wednesday, with respect, he had that happen with his friend Joey. It's this industry is not always easy for the bands, no matter how low you go or how high. It's challenging, and some of those guys, they wore their heart on their sleeve, and talked about this. Randy Rhoads, went down. Jani went down. Robin Crosby went down. Jack Russell's now gone. Steve Riley's gone. There's a whole list, of guys that at some point, Randy Castillo, that I've written about, Tawny Katane, Brian Howe, that we've written about, on Metal Sludge in 25 years. We're all real people. So, and when Michael Monroe said, think about all the underlying stuff that went around about Motley Crue and Hanoi Rocks and the anger. Vince lives this life at some point, gets 30 days and then goes on to more success. And there was a lot of animosity in those camps, but it was good a couple of years ago when we saw Motley Crue played in, I think, Finland, and Michael Monroe was on a few shows, and he showed up, and they had those photos of him and Vince and Nikki backstage. And I thought that Michael's words were very, very real. And he just said, it's an accident, and to think that those guys were literally, I mean, with all where TUFF was about to become that next band, or, the success that Wednesday touched with being in Murder Dolls, and suddenly he's playing stadiums and arenas and playing with all these big bands. Hanoi was right there and building that friendship with Motley Crue. And it's safe to say that if that doesn't happen on December 8th of 1984, Hanoi Rocks is the opening band on the Theater of Pain tour. And all of us, all of us kids that saw Motley Crue and Shout at the Devil, or was about to see them after we saw Smoking in the Boys Room or Home Sweet Home on MTV, and then we go to that show and we see Mike Monroe walk up on stage, and Andy McCoy and Nasty Suicide and Sam Yaffa and Razzle. It's like Billy said, Guns N' Roses doesn't exist then.
Right. Yeah.
Jet Boy, Faster Pussycat. Most of those bands probably don't get what they got or don't become what they became because they were all, I mean, we all saw this too. When the documentary says, look at Andy McCoy and look at Izzy Stradlin.
Oh, yeah, dude.
I mean,
yeah.
The guitar, the white shirt, the black vest, the hat, the glasses, the cigarette, the body structure, the bracelets. I mean, the creepers. It's like when they put me and Brett up there, you know, or they put Nikki Sixx and Susie for the Susie and the Banshees. So, yeah, sorry to get a little deep on you guys, but
no, it's true. All the members of Hanoi Rocks have been on the show, and according to them, I reunited them. It lasted one show, and now it's all over.
Right.
But they've all said Andy McCoy is not forgiven. He's not going to forgive Vince Neil. That's the end of it. The other guys all say it's an accident. Sammy Yaffa has said that Razzle was just as crazy as Vince, and he would have driven, and he chose to get in a car drunk, and that it's sad. And they were very young people, especially Razzle.
We all were. We all were. I mean, that's the thing. When people are like, how come you didn't do this? How come you didn't do that? Why were you doing this? Why were you doing that? Even Sebastian, as much as we all bust his balls, the guy was 20 years old when the record came out. Record came out in January of '89. He's 20 years old. He was born in '68, April something. So he turns 21 on their arena tour. I joined TUFF. I'm 21. I'm the fucking grandpa in the room.
Right. Did we make good decisions? Right. At that age, to think, could you make good decisions?
Yeah. Michael is 19 years old. None of those guys can even buy a beer. They can't even legally buy a beer. I'm the leader. I'm not the leader. I'm the new guy. I'm the old guy. And then 2 years later in 1989, we're on tour. I'm 23. They're 22, 21. Our road crew are 18, 19. At the time, we're in a tour bus that cost, I don't know, $250,000, $300,000. 10 of us rolling down the freeway with a license to kill, smoking, drinking, pot, drugs, girls. And yeah, they probably weren't all 18 either. I'm just saying it because it's factual for all the bands. And rolling across the Midwest, Texas, Kansas City, Iowa, St. Louis, Minneapolis, Chicago, and we're all kids. Think about our age right now and divided by my age and divided by 3. I'm almost.
I know a guy here who got a DUI wearing an I Love Booze shirt. I saw the mugshot. The documentary does make it sound, and a lot of people do, that if the accident doesn't happen, Hanoi goes on. When I interviewed Sammy Yaffa, he said that there was a lot of drug problems in that band. There was marital problems with people. There were drug problems. He said that Sammy and Razzle were both thinking about leaving. So there's so much controversy in that world. But you have to think Hanoi was about to be huge. Let's get to a much more serious topic. Jack Russell
and let me just end the Hanoi spot right there before you jump. There was a lot of drugs in that band. There was a lot of drugs in Guns N' Roses. There were a lot of drugs in RATT. There was a lot of drugs in Motley Crue. There was a lot of drugs in TUFF. There was drugs in Slipknot. There was drugs in the Murder Dolls. Everybody at some point had done drugs. Yeah. But the one thing that I thought that was awesome that Michael said is that Razzle wasn't the original drummer. He came to their shows and came up to them and said, "Where's your drummer? I'm going to break his fucking legs. I want his gig." How great is that?
Yeah, it was a good story.
Well, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll thing was just a normal thing, and bands like me growing up, I idolized that. That was what Murder Dolls did. I drove by the Safari Inn in Burbank the other day, and I was reminded that's where Murder Dolls rehearsed. I stayed at, and we rehearsed over at Nightingale, same place. And I remember being in the office getting Wi-Fi on the computer there, and Joey was sending in T-shirt ideas for Murder Dolls, and I remember him being on the phone because the internet wouldn't work, and he was like, "All right, I want the back of the shirt to say sex, drugs, rock and roll, but I want rock and roll and sex X'd out, just where it says drugs." And I went, "This guy's crazy. This guy." And he goes, "Yes, I want a mock-up of that." And they had a mock-up of that within like the next day. And that's when I started rattling off ideas. But either way, that was just I remember that the other day. I just remember we never made that shirt, but we
No,
should.
that's great. That's a
You should make that shirt. And just a closing note: I had sex with a hooker at the Safari Inn, just for the
Yeah.
record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the good
Not
old
recently, but down in the
What
past.
was her name?
I'll never look at the Safari Inn the same. I pass it all
Yeah.
the time. Serious question: who was prettier, Brett or Stevie? Stevie, I got to ask you a question. I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you think that what Bret Michaels has got going on now is a wig or a weave, or do you think that's his hair? You don't have to answer.
Well, Brett's even said at some point, even when he was on Rock of Love, I think his quote was, "These are, this is money that I have money that you can buy the finest Italian hair extensions," or something like that, is what
Yeah,
he
he
said.
said something
So,
like that.
hey, I think it's safe to say there's a fair amount of guys that maybe aren't running around with Sebastian's hair. Sebastian still has a mop. Rachel still has it. Snake. Some guys do.
You think the
some of us
story's
don't.
true about Brett having a car accident and that he might have a scar, that he can't grow hair and he has to wear a bandana? That's been a story for a long time.
Well, he did. I think he was in an accident in the 90s, and I want to say it was a Ferrari in Burbank. You can Google that. Fact check me. He was in an accident going back into the valley from Hollywood, and it was in Burbank, I think. And I think his face hit the steering wheel or the windshield, and he might have had some type of medical procedures to follow that because he bashed his face in, and
I worry about Bret Michaels a little bit. Not that he needs me to worry about him, but we have a show coming up with him in Virginia, Stephen Pearcy and Bret Michaels.
Right.
RATT responsible for a lot of Poison. They brought them out on their first big tour.
Right.
Bret acknowledges that. I think that was good of him to pay respect to some of the first tier bands that supported them as well. But Bret's been having some issues. He needs to go and have a procedure done. I'm not talking out of school. He has some health issues. His guitar player, who loves to talk, he says that he thinks he should stop touring right now and get this procedure done. We were going to cancel that show. Bret was. Now he says it's on. He's having some hard times. I'm a fellow diabetic. I know it's not easy, but he has other health issues as well. He said that he wants to do Poison in 2026 now. He doesn't want to go out next year. They're mad. At least Ricky Rocket is. He's expressed it. He would like to tour. Bret needs to take a rest, it seems. Bret also doesn't want to get rid of his party gras thing. I think Bret would like to be the next Jimmy Buffett or Sammy Hagar. And
I'm gonna hit the bathroom. I'll be back.
Yeah, we'll be here. And he said 40 shows in 2026 is really what he wants to do to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Poison.
Right.
I understand. I would understand that he needs to be careful about what he does. Oops, hold on. We're looking at his room by himself. But so I think people who watch this documentary are going to be itching for some Poison. Hopefully, Bret can get his health worked out, and in 2026, you'll get to see that reunion. Okay, some more comments. Seeing Steve Riley in it was awesome, but it made me sad because it's crazy that he's gone. Underrated. Sad that Tracey and him never made up. I couldn't agree more. As soon as I saw him, I thought the same. I did his final interview. I spoke to him a few days before he passed. I still speak with his widow. We're talking about doing some things to honor Steve. I think it'll happen at some point. And it is sad that Tracey and him couldn't make up. one thing about Tracey in this documentary is he speaks from a wiser point of view, I felt. Like, you know, at some point you grow up a little bit.
I thought Tracey came across great. I mean, as a matter of fact, I thought everybody came across decent, you know. And like we talked about earlier, you know, I've seen some comments online where people were upset that maybe this band wasn't covered or that band wasn't, or this artist wasn't talked about. And again, there's almost so much space, you know. It's just like, it's similar to the fans going to the show and saying, why didn't you play this song?
Right.
How come this wasn't included? And a lot of times, you know, it might even be a real popular song that gets cut. I know that when we played Rocktember, I don't remember if it was 30 minutes or 40, but we had a set list. And at some point, you know, I get on stage and I start talking and rambling on. And the next thing you know, the set's 3/4, half, you know, more than 3/4 gone. And I look over to the side of the stage, and one of the stage crew guys looks at me and he goes, one more. And at that point, we had 3 songs left in the set. And usually you'd save a couple of the most popular songs for the end. So, you know, we ended up having to cut, I think we cut All New Generation, and we just went right into American Hairband. But, you know, the same thing applies for this documentary. Like I said, if they went to M3, whoever was on the schedule that day or that weekend is likely who they got clips of, you know, which was the guy from Kix, the girl from Vixen. I think they even showed, you know, one of their bows at the end of the M3. I don't know if Brett's interview was during the M3 weekend, if it was one of the weekends he played there, or if they did a special interview with him at his place in Arizona. But there's only so much time, you know. And
Stephen Pearcy has a greatest hit set list. He could play the RATT greatest hits 81 to 91. But what people don't understand is sometimes we go to an event and the promoter says, I want 45 minutes. Well, there goes anything from the EP. There goes probably anything from Detonator. And hope for the best. We could play Out of the Cellar, and that'd be the 45 minutes. So it's a tricky thing. Lisa asks about Beavis and Butthead and Wingers. She says Kip's ballet dancing was a little silly. Barry Billy Squire inspired. I tried to talk to Kip about this. He got very angry when I said that he pulled his clothes off a wardrobe rack. He did. He wore a Metal Church shirt. He never heard Metal Church. He gets upset about this Beavis and Butthead thing. When I was working with him, we sold the exact Winger Beavis and Butthead shirt. It was a bestseller. I think he's dealing with it now. I don't believe that Beavis and Butthead ended Winger, even though Red Beach says that came out and the next week their tour was over. I think there's coincidence to that. I could be wrong. Kip would argue it. But I don't think that Beavis and Butthead killed Winger. I think that music.
Are you saying that they were selling a black shirt just like Stewart wore that just said Winger on it and that little squiggly lines?
I have it. Yeah.
Great shirt idea. They should be selling that every single night. It would probably, like you said, a top seller.
They could sell that at Hot Topic.
It was the most open-minded Kip was. Him and I discussed it together. I found the company to make it.
Great idea.
And it was his dealing with it, and he's come a long way with dealing with it. But I don't think that Beavis and Butthead ended Winger. And I always say this: Winger had the last laugh. If you go to one of these festivals right now, I dare to say Winger's the best band on the bill of most of these bands. Winger is they're incredible. Red Beach, Rod Morgenstein is one of the best drummers of all time. Not just in
they're just crazy musicians. They're always going to be good. Like so,
they have their original lineup. Listen, put them on with Motley Crue. Put them on with Poison. Any of those bands.
I just wish I liked their music as much as I like Motley Crue and Poison. I don't. But I know they're great players.
A lot of people don't. No, it's not. It's not for everybody. Some people think Doc McGhee having hair was the most shocking part of the documentary. He might have had something done.
Hey, Jason, when you had Brian from Kix on your show, has he ever talked about whenever he left Kix and they tried to replace him with a lookalike and fool people like me that knew right away that wasn't, but also didn't know, was like, hey.
He's been on a few times and he did address it. And he did address those issues of what they were trying to do to sort of fake it. And he knew it was over. he tells the story about going to jail that he tells in the documentary in my interview. He was doing crack. He got arrested multiple times. There's a music organization. I think it's called Music Cares. It's one of these music charities. They saved Brian Forsythe. He had no money. That organization got him into rehab, got him out of prison. So for those who want more, those interviews, you can see a lot of people saying, don't forget Twisted Sister. We talked about that. We didn't forget them.
They're my favorite.
They're my favorite. Mitch is here. I was lucky enough to do some writing for Metal Edge Circus and Metal Maniacs, as well as Foundations in the late 80s and 90s. Such a great time for music. Let's see here. I'm trying to go through these as fast.
Stevie, what was the first magazine you were in? What was the first big magazine of the big 4 or 5, like Circus, Hit Parader?
Well, the thing is this. One of the first, I think the very first press we got when I was in the band was actually in Kerrang. Now, if you remember, Kerrang, I believe, wasn't even bi-weekly. I think Kerrang was a weekly magazine.
No, it was monthly at that. It was monthly then, or if it was even monthly then, but it wasn't weekly then.
I know that it was a European magazine. Kelv Hellraiser, rest in peace to Kelv, who was like the glam god of London, who worked at a store called Shades Records, which was a very popular, it was like the Tower Records of London that everybody went to. It was either him or Dave Reynolds that covered us in Metal Forces or Kerrang, but they had already covered the band since Terry Fox. So TUFF started getting some international press, little snippets with their first 3-song demo with Terry, and then their EP with Jim in '86. And then I get in the band. So it was, I want to say that it was European or English press because I thought the magazine printed quicker. As we know back then, the lead time for a magazine was probably 6 to 8 weeks or longer.
Right.
But
so
Kenny
what
Kerner,
magazine would we have seen you in first? Because I saw a pinup of you guys. I think I was talking to you about this, where I thought Michael was the front guy. He had the skeleton outfit on. It was a full pinup. And was it Rock Scene magazine? Maybe?
Well, the thing is, the way it worked is this: there was a few publishers, like Hit Parader was obviously the Hit Parader was the magazine, but they also had like Hit Parader Hot Shots or Hit Parader Concert Shots. Those were like offshoots.
I remember I had all those.
Yeah, and then there was like Rock Scene, and that was the same publisher put out a whole bunch of stuff. You know, there was Metallics and Faces and Powerline and, you know, tons of those. Metal Edge obviously was there. Circus was usually for a little bit reserved for a little bit bigger acts, which we eventually got in Circus. We got in all of them. We got a lot of Hit Parader press even before we were signed, because Andy Setcher, who was the editor of Hit Parader, was one of the 4 partners that made up Titanium Records that signed us in '90. But we were getting press in those magazines probably in '88 into '89. And it was not just press, but like full pinups. And Andy had told us that he was watching us, knew that we were going to blow up, had a feeling. And when nobody else signed us, it was him and his partners, which included Paul O'Neill, who was the guy that created Trans-Siberian Orchestra and produced Sabotage. It was Andy, Paul, Mitch Herchevsky, and a guy named Sheldon that were the 4 partners of Titanium that signed us. And because they were affiliated, Andy and Mitch, with the magazine, that's why we got a ton of press and all the offshoot Hit Parader, Concert Shots, Hot Shots. Literally almost every month there was something with us, and that's because
wasn't Concert Shots like just all pinups, like a big. That was like when you found those, I was like wallpaper.
Yeah, and then they'd have a 1 month it'd be featured, like it would be, you know, guitar issues, so they'd have a whole bunch of stuff with, you know, everybody from, you know, Andy Timmons of Danger Danger, Joey Allen of Warrant, you know, Steve Brown of Trickster, and they were doing the obscure bands as well. Rocks Gang, Kick Tracey, South Gang.
Yeah, they had everybody that looked cool or they had a cool picture of got in that magazine. I had them on the wall somewhere.
He's we should point out Andy was also mentioned in Guns N' Roses Get in the Ring. He is one of the names that absolutely challenges. At the end of this documentary series, I want to listen to Appetite for Destruction from cover to cover again. It's one of the few records I feel like you can listen to as an album, every song. It made me want to listen to that record again. It made me want to listen to some of my other favorite bands from start to finish. Go on Spotify and listen to them or buy the records. And it made me want to see these bands live and reminded me how fortunate I am that every weekend I see bands that were part of that scene. Sure, they're not all the same lineups. Not everyone's alive. But I think it left me in a good feeling about hair metal, hard rock. It made me want more of it. It made me feel fortunate that I was a kid growing up listening to that music. I couldn't imagine being a kid growing up listening to music now. There's just, I don't see, there's not a magic to it. And at the same time, maybe we got burned out of Nothing But a Good Time. But then I think we certainly got burned out of everything else. And now I think a lot of young people sure would like to have some fun again. The world is so damn serious. And boy, would it be nice just to party. I mean, after this, the three of us are going to go to a freak-off party. But, you know, it's not for everybody.
Well, and you know what's crazy is Penelope said, you know, it's not going to last forever, guys, which we get that. And while nobody was thinking that, I mean, who knows what we were thinking when we were 20, 21, 22, even 25, even 30, you know, at our ages where we're at right now, for anybody that's even listening, all these people in the comments, most everybody is a grown adult that probably has kids or adult kids and maybe even grandkids.
Not Wednesday,
we knew it wasn't going to last forever. But when you think about it, we were replaced by grunge. And how long did it last?
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. And
how long? I'll ask you, Jason, Wednesday, how long did it last?
Well, I'm going to say grunge was 3 years. Peak time, 3 years. 4 maybe. That's my guess.
Less. Check this out. Nirvana's record Nevermind came out in September, late September, I think September 27th of 91. Kurt Cobain killed himself April
93.
of 94.
4.
30 months.
Yeah.
2.5 years. So really the rise of grunge, the as I called it, the nuclear missile that came in and blew up hair metal or 80s metal or hard rock or glam or whatever you want to call it, Bon Jovi metal, that was literally 91, late 91, where it really affected. And Kurt was already dead in the spring of 1994. That's 2.5 years. And obviously over the course of the grunge lifespan, there's probably about 10 bands that really made up the brunt of it. How many singers are left?
Yeah.
Eddie Vedder's alive.
I say it all the time. But these grunge fans fall for fake lineups. They don't care. They're going to go see Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
If there was a Nirvana with some other jackass like Dave Grohl singing.
Well, I was going to say we got Nirvana Part 2. That's the Foo Fighters. But Dave Grohl is as lucky as he's been, and I say luck because, man, he's written some great songs. He's had some huge success. But right now, if it wasn't for Diddy, Dave Grohl would be the headline everywhere because girls are coming out of the woodwork left and right and throwing that guy against the wall for being a serial cheater and affairs and. You know, he's got a pretty big pocketbook too. There might be some lawsuits coming.
Well, let me touch on that. I'm on the road actively with bands. You guys are too, but I'm in it right as the story's breaking. And every musician I know who's married, their wives are all going, "You cheating son of a bitch!" And now everyone's being accused because they say if Dave Grohl could do this, you could do it too. And now everyone is really suspicious because Dave Grohl was an angel. Dave Grohl could do no wrong. Nobody thought Dave Grohl could be.
And that was my point. And I said that. And I've seen people posting about, oh, the poster boy is a bad boy. No, not the guy that plays with Paul McCartney. Not the guy that plays, stadiums. Not the guy who's, obviously suffered through some stuff. But this guy not only is cheating, he's having kids with other people, and meanwhile he's got a whole family.
He didn't mean to have the kid. Come on.
No, I know, but clearly that means it wasn't like he got together and blew a load in her one night and now she's having a kid. There's probably been an extensive affair there.
You
And
think he just every night goes, why did I write that song about making a confession? I mean, he's got to be talking
Yeah.
about getting straight in the ass. Wednesday, your fan Sixter is back. I think they got into their mother's credit card.
Oh my
Can we
God.
at least follow each other on social media? Wednesday doesn't have time to follow everyone on social media, but if you send him a check, maybe he would.
You know,
Okay,
we were talking about that guy from Steelheart that I can't say his name. I'll never forget one of the last years with my ex-wife. I was in the movie theater watching that movie right after I got off tour with Murder Dolls, and it was a scene whenever they made the Rock wife ride in the separate car, and I remember her just like looking over at me in the movie theater, and I was just like, oh, I picked the wrong movie to go see.
we
It
lost
was
Steve. We lost Stevie. I
it
don't
was
know what happened.
terrible. My story was so bad. He was like, I'm out of here.
You scared him off.
Oh,
I think he'll be back. It was hard enough to get him in here though. But
yeah.
I'm gonna guess Wednesday because we made him switch to a cell phone. I bet you he didn't plug a cell phone in, and his cell phone died. We're over the 2-hour mark. I'm shocked my camera hasn't gone out. I am faking feeling good. Wednesday. Oh, Stevie's back. Yeah,
am I back?
yeah,
Yes.
you're back. I almost didn't do the show today. I was in so much pain. I was going to just say, Wednesday, why don't you just host the show and call it Waste Some Time with Wednesday and you do it? But and if I ever can't do it, that's my option. But at this point, I'm feeling all right. I'm really enjoying talking to you guys about this and about this movie that I think people should watch. No one's paying me to watch it or any of us. Nothing but a good time. It's on Paramount Plus. At the very least, sign up for 3-day trial. Watch it.
Well, I do have a confession to make, Jason.
You're a child.
You are not the only one who is suffering today. I actually had a root canal on Monday. And so if my face looks a little Wolfgang Van Halen-ish, it's because the right side of my face is a little swollen. I'm on some painkillers, some antibiotics, and I've even had a little bit of, I don't know, probably tripping over my words because my mouth was treated with a jackhammer on Monday. So, but I don't know, I guess I'd rather have a toothache than trying to force a kidney stone through my wang that was the size of a rock.
Yeah. As I said, the craziest thing is the wang part is really not the part that hurts. That's what's crazy. You think, oh my God, you literally have to reach into your wang and pull the damn thing out when it gets to that point.
Wow.
Yeah. But you hope to be medicated by that point. But it is this traveling. When it gets into this ureter, which is a thin tube, I'm on a thing called Flomax. And Flomax...
I've seen a commercial for this.
There's a great episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm where Larry David takes Flomax. And he's peeing in a bathroom, and there's a picture of Jesus on the wall. And he splatters a little, and it makes it look like Jesus is crying. And they start charging money to come visit this picture. But Flomax opens, Flomax opens your ureter to make it easier to pass. And yes, it makes you pee more. But here's the strange thing. And I don't know if this is going to get me demonetized, but this is being scientific. If you attempt to ejaculate via masturbation while you're on Flomax, you will have a retrograde orgasm. I don't know if I'm saying it exactly right.
What does that even mean? Is that something?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you asked, Wednesday. When you so normally in the male reproductive system, should you reach a pleasure, you would then ejaculate. But
that'd be climax.
Climax. But if you're on this thing called Flomax, it will actually go backwards, and nothing comes out.
You uncome.
Yes. So I don't think it's the worst. And listen, I've been in a lot of pain. I have not been having any entertainment, but it sounds like birth control to me. But I don't listen.
Dr. Rachelle would like to add something.
Yes.
Patient Green. So the ureter What do you? How did you say it?
I think it's ureter. Could be
Right.
urethra is separate.
I was going to say that is different than the urethra, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. I've had a few friends that have talked to me about their kidney stone issues, and I've heard the horror story. So I do not envy you at all, and I pray that that doesn't come into this part of my life. And I've already got enough problems. I don't think I need a rock of sand trying to come through my ball bag.
Yes, you don't. I don't think it actually ever is that accompanies your ball bag. But you want to watch your sodium. You want to watch your soft drinks. You don't want to eat spinach, as stupid as it sounds.
No problem with that.
Those things are filled with. Yeah, you don't like anything green. Those things
So
are filled
sodium.
with.
So it's the stuff that's in these sodas, right?
Sodas, too much. But if you are drinking the soda pop, you want to drink a lot of water. Water is
That's
the key.
what I do. Every time I drink a soda, I'll have like 2 bottles of water. You got to do that.
I'm drinking about 12 of these a day, filled with lemon and water, and I'm taking apple cider vinegar. The idea is that the citric will burn the stone a little bit and make it less sharp. Can even sometimes destroy it to dust. That's what you're hoping for.
You can also sit on a washing machine on a high cycle and shake. And
They say roller
I
coaster.
thought we were talking about nothing but a good time. Now we're talking about Jason's catheter.
Nothing. This is nothing but a bad time. Nothing but a bad time now.
Nothing but a kidney stone.
I'm just kidding about the washing machine thing. That's not a true thing. Don't try that at home, kids.
Don't take medical advice. You can take medical advice from us, but not now. Listen, I want to make sure
if we want medical advice, we're going to go to Medical Sludge for medicalsludge.com for
let's do that.
Somebody mentions the having a baby thing. My first kidney stone, the nurse told me, I thought I was dying. I was vomiting. I was screaming. And she goes, "Oh, you got a kidney stone." I go, "There's no way this pain is from a kidney stone." I'm in the hospital waiting room. Brent Muscat again, a Faster Pussycat, brought me to the hospital. And they told me, the people in the waiting room go, "Let him go first. He's dying." In a waiting room, for people to let you go first is crazy. I went in. I had about 6 bags of morphine that night.
Oh.
And I couldn't believe it. But the woman goes, "I've had children. And I've had kidney stones, and the kidney stones are much worse." So,
wow.
Yeah, it's crazy to believe that, but that's what they
don't have they don't have a better way of getting that figured out yet. You can't laser those out. We can't AI those out.
And the thing is this. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jason. And in reality, that thing is like a 1/10 of the size of a pea, or it's like a grain of sand, right?
Yeah, the ones that I have, and the one that I have right now, is like a piece of rice. It's 4 millimeters.
That's a.
But what it does to you is it throws off your whole body. This little, I'm a close to 200-pound man. I'm 6'1". This thing, little piece of rice, has made me nauseous. Has given me the worst headache. I mean, intense headaches, nausea, stomach pain. And this is a little tiny thing. And it's crazy. So
have you and Michelle talked about? She talked about how many days before she pulls the plug on you? Because this was discussed in the Gary Coleman documentary.
I think Michelle knows when to pull the plug. I've told her that this could be it. That's why I shared my birthday.
This sounds really bad. This sounds horrible.
This is why I shared my birthday wish list in the comments, so that people want to buy me something, because I'm probably not going to be around much longer. Some people say
if you pass this thing, do you get to keep it?
You can keep it. Gene Simmons tried to sell his on eBay. Speaking of selling things, I want to point out, look, you guys aren't here for your health. You've got things to promote, and people are saying their goodbyes to me. They say there's a laser procedure, but one of the things I got to point out, the stone has to be a certain size. Those procedures, they do this one where they shake you up, and it's not particular. It'll destroy your organs, everything. It's the stone.
It's like the washing machine thing. I was right about this.
They say go on roller coasters, and I will tell you, I went to Universal Studios. I went to Universal Studios, and I peed blood and passed the stone. That's a long time ago. But Stevie Rachelle is showing off the wares, and I want to make sure that people know that since you guys are here, that you're not just here for your health. You're here to promote as well. So, Stevie, you're showing off the wares. Where can we get this?
We have all kinds of colored vinyl at RLS
I don't think they call it
Records.
colored anymore. I think that's
Yeah, you can't say that anymore.
You can't use the word color.
oh no.
The
Especially
times have
the South.
changed. Times have changed.
So we have the glam years, we have fist first, we have what comes around goes around. For all those who are keeping up with the Swedish sleaze invasion back 10, 15 years ago, the Veins of Jenna, Art of Telling Lies is now available on vinyl for the first time in black and red. The RLS Records catalog is not quite 100 products, but it's dozens. And
Where
that
do we
includes-
go?
Go to toughcds.com, or you can go to that website, Metal Sludge. As long as you click on the store in either one. And most are not all, if not all of this is available on Amazon. It's available at eBay. It's available at any and every show I do, whether it's me solo, with Shameless, with this band, with that band, with Tuff. So yeah, swag galore. I think we have more t-shirt designs available in more sizes, from small to 3X, 4X. We have a larger selection than ever. We have got hoodies, we got beanies. I have pretty much everything but the Wednesday 13 catalog. And for that, I'm going to pass it off to my friend.
All right, we got to
Wednesday.
hook you up with some stuff.
Wednesday, you've got new stuff, including the I Love to Say the F Word umbrella, which is available at official Wednesday 13.
Yes,
I'm
and it's
most
it's
excited-
gigantic. It's bigger than mine. It's bigger than the one I use. But yeah, my website, officialwednesday13.com, you can go to the merchandise, and we have everything when it comes to merch. I mean, everything from shirts to beanies to umbrellas to the collectible Burger King style glasses to everything. I'm even getting some ski masks made for Christmas in case you want to go into the bank and make a deposit. Let them know that you spread the holiday cheer.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Nice.
Listen, I'm excited Wednesday. You're going to be at Monster Palooza. It's one of my favorite conventions in Burbank.
That's right.
It's
That's
2
right.
weeks from now. Go to Monster Palooza's website or go to officialwednesday13.com.
That's going to be really cool. It's a Return of the Living Dead cast reunion there too. So I'm going to be fanboy in that. Going to bring my half dog. If you guys know that movie.
Mm-hmm. If you guys want to talk to Wednesday and meet him, this is the place to do it. I saw you did the famous Monsters convention in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. You dressed the part. People got to meet you. You were there with Peter Criss. It's a lot of cool stuff. So this is
You know what he said to me? I walked in the room and he said, "Hey, you look pretty cool." I went, "Thanks." And they took the picture, and then he goes, "You look like a Nazi." And I just kept walking. I went, "Well, that just happened."
That's not a bad thing to him, I think.
So there you go.
What a story. Also, you're getting ready to hit the road. So we're having fun while we can, because you're getting ready to go on the road with Hardcore Superstar. Tell me about it.
UK tour kicks off October 24th in Newcastle, Riverside. That was the name of the venue, and it's right beside of a river, which is appropriate. And Hardcore Superstar is on 4 of the dates of that tour. We have a band called South of Salem, who's really awesome as well, that's on all those shows. We do 15 dates in the UK, and then we head over to Europe, and we do 10 dates, and we switch, and we do main support for hardcore throughout Belgium, Italy, Switzerland, Germany, and ends in Amsterdam on November 24th. And then I get back in time to celebrate Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason, so check out Official Wednesday 13. Jason S. has a question for all of us. Hey, it's Jason Satterfield. Extreme, Mr. B, and Saigon Kick. 3 awesome bands pigeonholed by their hit ballads. Obviously, there was so much more than that. Which one is your favorite and why? Now, so let's pick which was our favorite ballad, and we'll pick which is our favorite band.
Saigon Kick wins.
So you're going to go with Love Is on the Way and Saigon Kick?
Saigon Kick had more than, I mean, the ballad, that's a great song. And the stretch on that chord is insane to do as well. So not only is it a good song, it's hard to play too, or play properly. They had several ballads that were awesome. Saigon Kick was one of my favorites. I loved the Lizard album. The first album was cool. I even liked the Water record. Mr. Big was not my favorite, even though they were crazy musicians. I did like Extreme a lot. So they'll be number 2. Mr. Big falls at number 3.
Stevie?
I'm the one who wants to be with you.
I'm with
Deep
you, Stevie.
inside, I hope you feel it too.
Feel it too.
I'd say I'll take Mr. Big first. I like Eric Martin's voice. He's a great singer. They got some great songs, that Green Tinted 60s Mind or whatever it's called. Daddy, Brother, Little Big Friend, whatever. I don't know. I like a few of those songs. I've recently become reacquainted with Jason Beeler of Saigon Kick. We ran into each other, I think it was on the cruise, and kind of chatted a little bit. And now we've kind of been in touch a little bit on the internet over the last year or two. He's a character. He's a funny guy. And I know that band's going through some stuff with, him and the singer, and sometimes Phil. They're together, they're not, they're fighting, they're reuniting, they're breaking up, they're doing this, they're doing that. But obviously Jason's very prolific. Aside from Saigon Kick, he's done all these other projects and side projects, and what was it called? Shuttlecock or something. He's put out a bunch of records, and he's always busy. He's playing, he's doing a lot of stuff with Jeff Scott Soto. I like Extreme as well, but it's like Nuno said in the documentary, they're kind of all over the place. They're like, they got funk and they got some horns, and then they're doing this. And he's obviously this, crazy great guitarist, and the band is all super talented. But it was More Than Words that obviously really, really broke and turned them into a massive success. Because other than that, I'm not sure what is their next biggest song. Not Get the Funk Out, right?
They had a song.
Their next second song would be Wholehearted.
Wholehearted.
Huge. That was huge for them too. You can still hear that in the grocery stores.
Right, exactly.
Art Acoustic also.
Those songs, Wholehearted and More Than Words, those are the songs that make the publishing checks very different. Because like you just said, Wednesday, you hear those in a grocery store, in an elevator, in the mall, in the lobby of a 5-star hotel. You're not hearing 18 in Life, even you're not even hearing the Warren or the Skid Row or the Poison ballads at those places. That More Than Words is very crossover. I mean, that was probably played on,
It's definitely the biggest of the 3 we're talking about.
Yeah.
But, a lot of these bands were going to get dropped if it wasn't for those songs. Mr. Big, for a fact, we're going to get dropped on a Tuesday. The song comes out on a Friday. That is a real story for Mr. Big. To Be With You saves that band's career. Mr. Big, Extreme definitely would not have been as big as they were. It was weird that Nuno tries to describe it. I was trying to describe to Michelle earlier what Extreme is like. She hates More Than Words. At the time, we were excited to see a rock band on TV, and so we were happy, even if it was a ballad, because we got to hear a rock band. That song hasn't aged well for me. I walk out the second they play it. I don't want to be in the grocery store when it's on. But their first album is a lot more metal. And Nuno's on that show trying to say that we're not really a metal band. But songs like Kid Ego and...
that's very heavy riffs. That's almost like Saigon Kick riff heavy. Like
a Mother, I Don't Want to Go to School Today. There was some heavy stuff, and they were in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure with those songs because they were heavy. For me, I think To Be With You is the best of these ballads, and I think that Extreme is the best of these bands. Mr. Big was the band that was all over the place for me. There were bass solos and this and that, and
that was essentially kind of a super group, because Paul Gilbert's coming out of Racer X. Billy Sheehan was this bass god from Talus, but he, made his name on, David Lee Roth's solo band. Greg Bissonette by that point was already a seasoned session drummer. And Dave was obviously the superstar they just put on the, or, you know, well, no, that's Eric. Eric was playing around in local bands up in the Bay Area, but he was also, I guess, a vocal teacher. I remember the first time I met him, I was at Niels Lozauer's studio, and I came in there, and Paul Gilbert and Billy Sheehan were there. They just finished a photo shoot, and I was like, I literally was like, "Who's this kid in here?" It was Eric, you know, because at the time he was probably
young, but he was older. He recorded demos with Paul Taylor way back in the day.
Tesla, yeah. I mean, I think he taught Jeff Keith how to sing, but he was like in his mid to late 20s, but he looked like he was 14. I was like, who is this kid? And they're like, that's the singer. I was like, he looks like a seventh grader.
Troy Lucetta of Tesla was in the Eric Martin band, and the drummer was Pat Torpey at the time, who played with Robert Plant and a bunch of others. But anyway, so that's that. Let me get through these last comments. We'll wrap it up. Way Cool Jr. I'm still ashamed how awkward I was towards Wednesday. I lost the ability to speak when I meant to say. She sent me on social media. She sent me her photo meeting Wednesday, and I said, "Did you tell him that you met him from the show?" And she said she couldn't even say a word. She was so nervous to meet Wednesday. Wednesday is very approachable.
I have the presence. Sometimes I take people's voices from them. They can't speak sometimes.
Stevie, did you keep your extensions as souvenirs? Good question.
No, there's no hair extensions. However, when I cut my ponytail off and shaved my head when I turned 50, my ponytail of hair, it's about 10 inches long, and I rubber banded it and cut it, and it's literally in a drawer sitting over here.
Oh, nice.
I told you guys I sold my Murder Dolls dreadlocks. I sold them on eBay. I made about 850 euros, I think it might have been for it.
John Karabi did that too, right? John Karabi sold.
I heard that Ryan Roxy sold his dreadlocks, and I want to see if I could make more than he did.
I sold my hair. I shaved my entire head. I sold my hair to Locks of Love for $3,500 charity. That was what was raised. Yeah, and so there's some young neurotic kid probably walking around talking with his hands and bitching about music with my hair. So, and I did donate to that charity, I believe 3 times. There was the St. Baldrick's Foundation, a great charity for kids with cancer.
That's a lot of money for you. Did you have really long hair?
I had really long hair, yeah.
Whoa.
Jason, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
We have been on for more than 2 hours and 30 minutes.
Yes. Who's counting?
And we are still well over 300 people watching. Is that a record? I mean, that's a lot of people for that extended time, isn't it?
This is some of the best numbers I've seen. We've never dipped under 300. We've hit 350.
No, it's been pushing 400 almost the entire time.
Yeah,
it's great because I always look at the numbers and I always go, whenever I'm playing those Monday night shows in the middle of Kansas somewhere and there's 50 people and I'm like going, there's 300 people watching this.
Yeah,
watching this.
I like
here playing a live concert.
We've created a community with this, though, with this show, with this live show especially, that we support each other's endeavors. Listen, if Stevie writes a story and it mentions one of my interviews, it helps. It helps get people to look for the first time. I love when somebody tells me, I didn't know Wednesday's music until I saw your show. Or when I get a fan, Dead Girl 13, I Fuck Corpses 69. When those people follow me, I know they came from Wednesday. And it's great that we can all
Wait, are you saying that IF Corpses 69 is not a TUFF follower?
No. Yeah, there's a TUFF follower here in the comments. His name is Sean Card. I know that one came from you.
What's up, Sean? Hey, and while we have 300 to 400 people in here, I'm looking in my Big Cartel store, and I'm looking in my eBay store, and I'm looking in my Amazon account, and I only see 87 orders in the last hour. Gotta
get to 100.
Let's get that up.
I'm going to tell you something. Last week, Matt Thorne was on the show. Everybody loves Matt because he is the most humble guy in the world. He's done all these great things, and he never will brag. I love Matt.
He's amazing.
I found out he was on the TV show Fame, and I made him watch the episode of Fame with me here on the show. and I
Right.
promoted his merchandise. And you can go to his website and buy it still. I told him you should make picks, one for Rough Cut, one for RATT 1981, and one for
Great
Jailhouse.
idea.
So
Great
he made
idea.
them. And he came on the show, and I can't even tell you how much money he made, how many he sold. He came up with a code, WST. You get 25% off if you go on his website. He told me, I can't believe how much shit I'm selling. And his phone was blowing up, and it's a great thing. And he's part of the community. And I told him, Matt, people like you. They like, it's not just the music. They like him. They like Wednesday. They like you, Stevie. There's people who come on here and are real. I think real people identify. You know,
we're gonna test it out when my new record comes out with videos and see if people go watch this stuff. We're gonna see. That's how I'm gonna.
Your new record featuring me. Let's not forget.
Yes, that's right, and your lady.
And yes, and Michelle too. I'm not going to Photoshop myself on it and bootleg it, but
right.
But I am going to do it in store.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. But I am going to do it in store and promote it. But no, we're going to see how many Wednesday records we sell when it comes out. We're going to push the hell out of Stevie's covers albums. If you haven't heard the summer of '86, is it '86?
89.
89.
Yeah, I knew there was a 6 or a 9. Anyway, listen to it. It's great and it's really good fun. And support everybody for being here because then, like I said, they're nice enough to spend 3 hours on here. J Fry TV says you three are informed, engaging, and always a pleasure to watch. Thank you for doing this. So makes it all worth it when people like it. And we all were hyped up by that special. Stevie was fortunate to be a part of it, and we're talking about it because we believe in it. When I asked Wednesday, you want to talk about it? He said, yeah, I really liked it. You know, this was, we gave you an honest reaction.
So the trailer's online still. It's got 250,000 views. Episode 1 was free on YouTube, but they did remove it. And you want to know how many people watched it in 1 week?
How many?
It was over 400,000.
Oh, wow.
So
that's good.
They pulled it, I think maybe because it was creating a big enough buzz, but there was also a lot of people that just watched episode 1 and they didn't go watch episode 2 and 3. So they don't even know what happened after Motley, Great White, Wasp, Dawkins, and RATT. And obviously 2 and 3 are great. 2 has got, just for a quick breakdown, it's got a lot of Poison, Guns N' Roses, Cat House, Jet Boy, LA Guns, a lot of the middle ground of the 80s, that middle group of Sunset Strip bands. Then the third episode is basically 89 going forward. And there's a ton of Sunset Strip stuff in there. And again, touching on why it's not about Bon Jovi or not a ton about Motley. It's there. I think they're wanting to show like, hey, you had your Motley Crues and Van Halens, you had your Poisons and your Guns N' Roses, and by the third episode, by the third act, they wanted to show like, hey, there's a whole bunch of guys that got these deals, but not everybody got to sell 20 million records. Not everybody got to buy Ferraris and houses on the hills, and they wanted to give, I guess, our perspective, myself for TUFF, Steve Brown for Trickster, even Brian for Kicks, who says, I'm in a jail cell. I'm literally just got a cavity search and I'm walking down a hallway with a bunch of prisoners in orange jumpsuits. And I said to myself, how did I get here? Like a couple of years ago, I was playing on arena stages. I was on MTV. I was signed to Atlantic Records. Like all this was happening and now I'm here. So I think that it's a great story where, we get to show what happens maybe when you don't sell millions. And I think that's a lot what they show in episode 3. But for anybody that hasn't seen it, you got to log on, pay the $8, pay $30, whatever, get a trial, spend the 2.5 or 3 hours. Cause it's 3 40-minute segments with commercials. I guess they're an hour each. It's worth the investing your time.
I think so too. And when you get done, watch Taxi and The Odd Couple. Those are my recommendations. Also on Paramount Plus. And
I watched the Gary Coleman documentary. And
now, where's that at? Is it on Paramount?
That's on Peacock.
What you talking about, Willis?
Peacock.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch it.
They can say it 3 times an episode.
I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah.
Everybody had a great time watching. I enjoyed chatting with you guys. Hopefully, we'll find a time we can all get together and I can buy you dinner. By the way, you can still super chat and support that dinner. We should go to Michael Lean's place. What is that place called, Stevie?
Old New York Deli. There's one in Woodland Hills. There's one in Camarillo, California. There's one in Mammoth Lakes. They're full-blown delis. I mean, very expansive. Not expensive, expansive. Actually, it might be a little expensive too. They're all in really nice areas. But yeah, Michael's places are great.
Yeah, I think it would be a fun place to eat. And I'm eating nothing but soup right now. So
and this has not really been. We didn't do a press release. We're probably not going to. But for the record, for anybody that's paying attention, TUFF is at 3/4 strength. Michael Lean is officially back in the band. So
nice.
it's myself, Todd Chase, and Michael Lean, and your co-host saw the first ever rehearsal and the first ever jam with Michael in 30+ years.
He sent me
Wednesday was at the rehearsal, and he was
yeah,
at
he
the
sent
show.
me a video. I was jealous. I was very jealous. A lot of people jealous more about the deli. Does he serve like a Michael Lean pastrami? Like, can you get like a lean brisket?
There's no rock and roll style menu. It's New York style, but it's very good food and it's good stuff.
I was hoping that Michael would be back to stay. I was hoping he'd get the fever. When I saw you guys went to the party together, I thought it was. He looks great. He played great, and I think it makes it exciting.
Ask Wednesday. He was right there firsthand. He saw the rehearsal and the show.
It was crazy. I just had I was with my friend Ray and I was like, it's like Michael just hit a pause button in time. Like he's got the same look. He doesn't look he looks exactly like I wasn't expecting him to look. I was expecting the worst. I didn't know. I had no idea.
Right.
You know? But no, he came in looking exactly the same, and he was, and he's just got such a cool style to how he plays.
Yeah.
I'm such a drum nerd. He's one of my favorite guys to watch play. Instantly, I was like, yeah, this is cool.
Did you bring your TUFF fan club card with you?
I didn't.
You should have.
But he told Michael some stories at the rehearsal. He said, I was at your show when I was a teenager. Wednesday told him firsthand some of what he told me when we first hung out like 20 years ago.
No, it's pretty crazy to think like that was like my first concert, club concert with my first like real girlfriend, and like it was and it's just crazy full circle. I'm become friends with you. It's crazy, and it's I don't know, it's crazy and I got this picture of me wearing your T-shirt when I was 1990, 91 or whatever it is. It's nuts.
So what are you like? You're like 15 there, 14, 15?
Probably 14 in that picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. And, for all of us in our different levels of success and different things we do, sometimes you remind yourself. When I go to these festivals, listen, Stephen Piercy texted me the other day at 2 a.m. asking if I wanted to go to the vending machine with him. I brought the singles. And, and I think and I'm hanging out with him all the time. I take it for granted. He's great. He yelled at me when I was a kid. He wasn't as nice when I was just a fan. He's very nice now. But when I'm at these festivals and I'm on a plane with Steven Adler and whoever, these legendary people, it's so great. And I'm so fortunate to get to see the people that I grew up as a fan of and to be in this industry. And every time someone's on my show, it's not lost on me. And, and Stevie, you're still a fan as well. Even though you're in this business, you're an expert on these bands, not just because you have a website, but because you also are invested. You know these bands, you perform with these bands, and you want to see the bands do good. I don't think that Metal Sludge is looking to tear bands apart. It's not, you don't want them to do bad. Listen, if people do something stupid, you might report it, but you're a fan. You want to see them do well too.
It's a little Beavis and Butthead-esque, because when myself and Sean, who you mentioned earlier, when we started this in '98, we were like, we just wanted to give it a different perspective, and we were kind of making fun of it, but we were also making fun of ourselves. And if you look at old TUFF home videos, which Wednesday watched when he was 14 or 15 with his buddies, we were doing jackass type stuff in like 87, 88, 89, 90 on the road. We're, you know, trolling each other, screwing with our road crew. It's like, here's what it is. Metal Sludge was what happens to every opening band when they go on tour with a headliner. Metal Sludge was what happened to every college freshman when they go to college and they're living in the sorority house. They get hazed, they get their balls busted, they get made fun of. You know, they wake up and they find all their clean laundry, you know, out in the backyard laying in a pile of dog poop, you know? It's like, so Metal Sludge at some point was just trying to stir the pot a little bit because, you know, opening up Metal Edge and seeing like, we got caught up with Eric Turner at his juice shop and his favorite color is blue. So all the tiles on the kitchen are blue. It's just like, that's gay. You know, let's talk about something cool, you know, let's shake it up a bit. And I guess kind of
like that dude that had the fog machine in his bedroom.
Anthony Fox, you know, so, you know, and we just started like, it was kind of Howard Sternish. It was kind of Saturday Night Live-ish. We were basically saying, let's not ask this guy his favorite color. Let's not ask him what his favorite song is. Let's ask him which band he wishes he could put his foot in their ass because they suck, you know, or who are the biggest dicks to deal with when you went on tour. Wednesday knows what that's like. Some guys are really cool, and then sometimes you're opening up and you get treated like garbage, you know. So Metal Sludge was just trying to give it a different spin. And here's the thing: at the end of the day, it wasn't me and Sean that were hitting the button to click it over and over and over. When we were getting 20, 30, 35, 40, 50,000 hits a day, unique visitors from all over the globe, that wasn't me and Sean. That was because we struck a nerve with everybody else. The same way that Beavis and Butthead did at some point when they said, okay, we've seen all these bands, but this is kind of funny that those guys went and they saw the Kicks video. And then Beavis looks at Butthead and goes, this sucks. Let's get out of here. You know, that's kind of what Metal Sludge was doing. You know, we were kind of roasting it. We were making fun of it a little bit, but it wasn't, we weren't trying to, you know, we weren't trying to ruin anybody's lives. We might have been mean-spirited, just like the movie Mean Girls, you know, that's kind of what Metal Sludge was. And, you know, that's 25 years ago. That's a quarter of a century ago that we started, more than that. So
my current tour diary, My Life on the Road, is about Skid Row with Lizzie Hale. I spent 48 hours with them. Lizzie Hale was a very nice woman and a very talented singer. I mean, I don't want to just call her a nice woman. She was super cool. She hung out with anyone and everyone, and she was cool. And she did a good job. That video is at 10,000 views in 2 days. People are very controversial about it. Some people say she sucks. Some people say she's great. At the end of the day, I think all three of us would like to see Sebastian Bach sing for Skid Row. We all think that that would be the best thing, but we're not in the band, and maybe we don't have to deal with them. But no matter what we say or what we joke about, we all want the best too. I think we're still fans. We want to see our favorite bands work it out. We'd rather see Poison than Jimmy Buffett. I mean, the Party Gras tour. Anyway, wait, here's I was going to log off unless
I want to see the Bret Michaels band. That is what I want to spend my money on. Quote me on that one.
When I'm done touring, when it's over, right? When Stephen Pearcy says, I've done it all, I'm 70, I'm done, I will do the best show in the history of shows. I will tell you all about these bands. I'll spill it all. I'll talk about who sucks, who's good, who is mean, who should treat their bands better. I'll tell you who's got tracks. Everything, I'll expose it all. Anyway, Stixer is back. That's your new girlfriend, Wednesday. She said she's going to bring you some Oreo and Coke Zero next month, friendo. But he's already had it, friendo.
All right. I don't know. I mentioned I was going to try the Oreos because they were like the Coke flavored. I'm not a big Oreo fan, but at that convention, I got about 75 bags of Oreos.
Oh my God.
And I got about, I don't even know how many Coke Zeros I got. I mean, I got 2 liters. I got 6 packs. The fans delivered, but the message is a little confusing. I like it, but not that much. And I don't like Oreos that much. I like them, but that's not really my thing.
And you can't bring you too much liquid because you can't put all that in your suitcase to come
Can't
home
take it
with.
Oh
on
my
plane.
God. I had to leave a lot of that stuff in the room because so whoever cleaned my room got a what was left over of the Coke Zero Oreos.
I
They had a
tried the
party.
Coke Zero Oreo, and I have a kidney stone now. I can't say that the two are, I can't say the two are related, but it
Maybe
was
that's
right
what
before.
happened. Maybe the Beetlejuice menu did it.
That could have been it too. I thank Stevie for he wrote an article about it. Sean Clark said it must have been a slow news day. Three jackasses ate at Denny's, but it was a fun episode.
Oh,
And
that's right. I did a couple of what was my headline on that? I forgot. It
Oh
was a
yeah,
good-
you talked about me not ever having food in my life.
Yeah, what was got fries? That was the headline.
Yeah.
Yeah, here it is. Let me just give you the headline. I was trying to be creative. Got fries, sex, Denny's, and rock and roll. Go waste some time with Jason Green and his co-host Wednesday 13 as they eat at Denny's Diner. And then I grabbed still shots of Wednesday with a cheese sandwich and Jason with eggs and Wednesday with a milkshake and
Yeah.
Sean Clark looking at his phone. Yeah, that was fun.
when we go to the Michael Lean restaurant, we'll have to document it. We'll try everything on the Michael Lean menu.
Oh,
And Lean is
there's so
good
many
'cause
things there I've never tried. I was at a coffee shop the other day and I was like, I've never tried half this stuff here.
I'm
Even the
still
coffee.
perplexed. I'm still perplexed. I was texting Wednesday about this, and I was like, "Wait, let me get this straight. You never had a hot dog before? Like, are you out of your mind?"
Nobody believes it. When Sean is still in shock. Him and I both couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
We thought it's some
Yeah.
kind of work he's putting on.
It's not that I'm crazy. It's just my mom didn't cook and make all these different meals. It was just sort of like I said, it was just country food. It was like it was in the
But didn't you
morning it
have
was
didn't you have
gravy and
hot
eggs,
lunch at school?
biscuits. It wasn't like a lot. It wasn't a huge menu. I didn't go to restaurants. I didn't have a big menu. We didn't eat
What
Chinese food,
what
Mexican
about at
food.
what about at school though? I mean, like hot lunch. Didn't you have hot lunch? I mean, they don't just
Man,
have
I was the kid in the corner, not hanging out in the lunchroom, looking at comic books, and I took my lunch money and bought your cassettes.
good thinking.
So
Stixer is back. Stixer says she's too young to be your girlfriend. She's 22. I mean, 22 is not that young. I mean,
that's
yeah.
like Anthony Kiedis' age, isn't it?
Yeah, Anthony Kiedis or Mick Jagger.
Get
That's
him up.
nothing.
He's a red
Anyway,
hot
thank
chili
you.
pepper.
Thank you, Stixer, for being a
I
part
should
of
put
the
my
show.
glasses back on. When I glanced at that, I thought it said 12, not 22.
No, that would be an issue. Anyway, well, listen, it's been a fun show. We've done almost 3 hours of fun chat. It's been a good time. Distracted me from my kidney stone. Make sure you guys support these guys. Officialwednesday13.com, toughcds.com. Check out some music. Watch the Paramount special, and we'll all hopefully come back. We'll find something new to talk about. And we'll do this again. So thank you so much. Most people are going to watch this tomorrow in the replays. Leave comments. We'll try to keep an eye on it, and we'll go from there. So thank you again, and I hope you guys all have a great night.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Wednesday, and thank you,
Later.
everybody, for tuning in.
Woo, balloons.
All right, balloons say it all. Thank you guys, and have
Later.
a great